Part 50. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 493. What is this sound? Members of Earth City looked around. Pinswho.com. The sounds were not so clear at first, but when people stopped fighting, the singing began to become clearer. The little girl's unique voice quality made everyone feel intoxicated. Look there. A member of Earth City suddenly pointed to the top of his head. It turns out that wide projection walls have been built on every floor of the transport ship. Some projectors project clear images. Although the effect may be a little worse than holographic images, it is still an economical method. A small female girl with rabbit ears appeared in the projector. She was timid and cowardly, with a pair of big eyes that seemed to be able to speak, staring at the life forms in front of the screen with watery eyes. Some people are born to shine in front of the screen. And Lulu is obviously an example of this. Her appearance at this moment is extremely photogenic, completely opposite to her inconspicuous appearance before. Although she is still so shy and timid, it increases people's affection for this little girl with rabbit ears. Everyone, be friendly, Lulu said in front of the camera, as if she was frightened. Then on the screen was a little girl jumping up and down, dressed in a fancy dress, looking indescribably cute and charming. Not only her, but also some beautiful women of various races joined the singing team. There were 5 such singers in total. Although their expressions were not very professional, they all worked extremely hard. What are these? Each monster looked at the women singing hard, wondering what they were doing. Although aliens also have entertainment businesses, they are always different from those on Earth. What Delphine brings to them now is some unique entertainment on Earth. It's no fun if we don't fight. The 2 groups of people who were originally fighting seem to have no intention of fighting anymore. Listening to the lyrics, the mood of longing and remembrance in the lyrics made them stop fighting. Haha, interesting. Not far from the street, a big mosquito behind a wall was watching the scene calmly. He had powerful heat detection vision. At this time, looking at the street view separated by a wall, one could still easily see what was going on inside. Originally, he was thinking about breaking the wall to stop this incident that might bring great harm to the fleet, but when he saw that Daphne actually did something like this at this moment, he was suddenly speechless. He also knew something about the entertainment industry on Earth. How could he not know Daphne's intentions? Forget it, it doesn't matter to me how these women use Daphne, but that little Lulu is actually one of them. And she is also the protagonist. It seems that she will live a better life in the future. Alright. Jia Yan doesn't think so much anymore. Since the incident has been stopped, he doesn't care anymore. No matter what method Daphne uses, as long as it can appease the emotions of hundreds of thousands of creatures, that is what he is happy to see happen. Sir, the 15 days have come. I wonder if you are still in seclusion. Suddenly, Daphne's sweet voice came from the communicator. I'm no longer in seclusion, what's the matter? Jia Yan said. He had been using the excuse of seclusion before and didn't want to interfere too much in the affairs of the fleet. Because he knew very well that without him as the nominal leader, things would not get in the way, so he stopped participating. Giggle, sir, have you forgotten the 15-day appointment? Daphne let out a crisp and sweet chuckle. Even without seeing it, you could feel her covering her rosy little mouth. Smiling there. But Jia Yan didn't think of anything else because of this. Instead, through the meaning of her words, his compound eyes shone with surprise. Of course I remember. But I didn't really think that you could complete this matter in 15 days. If you say so, is the gravitational wave equipment really completed? Jia Yan's surprise was self-evident. When he heard Daphne talking about this time before, he thought she was just talking about it casually. After all, compressing it from 1 month to half a month is not simple thing, so he didn't have high hopes. Of course it's completed, but this is still a simple prototype with a lot of shortcomings, but it can still provide one-time transmission. Defuni could feel the excitement of the big Mosquito, and said directly without too much pretense. "My lord, please come to number 3 dockyard. I have a surprise for you." After finishing speaking, Delphine closed the communication. It seems that she gave up. There's still a surprise? This guy Jia Yan was overjoyed. The surprise that Defuni mentioned was definitely not a gadget. It seemed like he could look forward to it. But regardless of whether there was a surprise or not, the thing that Big Mosquito wanted to get the most was already said to be completed. No surprise could compare to this. At this time, he couldn't care about so much and immediately informed the operation room of the transport ship. After the spacecraft slowed down a bit, the cabin was opened. The so-called number 3 dock is actually not a real dock, but a commercial spaceship of about 500 meters. After hollowing out the internal space for transporting goods, it was directly turned into a huge research and development place. Those who conduct research and construction here are the most elite people in Earth City, and the security force here alone has no less than 3 huge sky-level peak powerhouses. This 500-meter class shipyard has been connected to the Devil's transport ship through an integrated structure. Although Jia Yan cannot pass through, the staff can enter the Devil's ship through this passage. After all, there are more creatures, allowing them to communicate. Jia Yan flew in space for a short time and entered the 500-meter spacecraft in less than 2 seconds. Grown-ups. Devier has long led a group of developers and several powerful peak-level experts to come here and wait. The rear cabin slowly closed. Jia Yan didn't even wait for this process and just walked towards the inside of the spacecraft. "Is the equipment really ready? Take me over to have a look." Defuni smiled and shook her head, but she understood how the big Mosquito felt at this time, so she quickly followed him. A 500-meter spaceship is not that small, to be honest. It provides working space for all development-related staff, as well as living space. After all, space is too scarce, so nearly 10,000 life forms live here. Looking at the busy creatures, Jia Yan nodded with satisfaction. In fact, the current problems in Earth City have left those creatures with nothing to do. If they had something to do, they would not explode. What a conflict! But Jia Yan doesn't want to say much about these things, it's up to Defuni to handle them herself. Now that the gravitational wave equipment is built, his heart. He has jumped to a distant place long ago. Yes. It's that beautiful blue planet. He was fed up with the monotonous color of the gray and yellow star, fed up with the intrigues of the gray and yellow star's forces, and even fed up with the days of being hunted. So he simply couldn't wait. "Sir, look, over there is the gravitational wave equipment and the surprise I told you." When a group of people walked to a slightly empty place, Defuni pointed at the things placed on both sides of the open space. Jia Yan's eyes narrowed and he looked at the 2 things that Defuni mentioned. The building on the left is obviously larger. It is square in shape overall, with the top supporting the ceiling of this space. It occupies an area of about 50 meters by 50 meters, and will be able to accommodate the size of a Jia Yan. It's just that the appearance has not been carefully crafted and looks a bit rough. He is the gravitational wave device. Defuni stepped forward with some pride. "Is this a gravitational wave device?" Jia Yan looked at this huge piece of equipment. Daphne came to one side of the huge equipment and caressed the walls of the equipment. "You know, no one has put as much effort into this device as she has. After arriving in the Shoals galaxy, she spent a lot of effort on gravitational wave equipment. Not only did she have to conduct research on gravitational wave equipment at the Rulan Empire headquarters, but even when she came to Earth City, the conditions for her to join and the conditions for the big Mosquito not to kill her. It's also because of the gravitational wave equipment. Sir, in fact, Oro's gravitational wave equipment was not a perfect machine, so that's why the accident that threw us into the Shoals galaxy happened. As for the theory and the general structure of the equipment, the drawings and information he left behind are enough for us to develop a relatively safe prototype. But as you know, opening a gravitational wave channel is simple, but after entering the channel, it can withstand gravitational waves? As far as I know, you are the only one affected by energy. So can this machine be used now? Jia Yan was not very interested in the principles of gravitational wave equipment, so he changed the topic. Daphne shook her head helplessly. She just wanted the big mosquitoes to know how hard they worked. Now there are two elderly scientific researchers who are in a semi-conscious and semi-sleep state because of working overtime for half a month. But I'm afraid the big mosquito can't listen to anything now. She smiled bitterly and said, yes, but we invite adults here just to collect some data. Don't forget that I once told you that this machine is just a prototype, because we want to be the first in a hurry. It has been used for the first time, so many fine structures cannot be completed yet. You may need to perform a simple matching survey. If this process is completed, plus the time of the warm-up engine, it will probably be ready for use tomorrow. Surveying and mapping, right? Let's start it immediately, Jia Yan said without hesitation. Daphne stretched out her white little hand and stroked her forehead helplessly, and then looked at the scientific researchers who were divided into two teams around her. A team of workers suddenly became ecstatic when they heard that the Mosquito was full of praise for the gravitational wave instrument. The other team felt unhappy. At this moment, they felt that the mosquitoes were impatient for the gravitational wave instrument. They even seemed to have forgotten their results, and they looked a little angry. You must know that they also worked overtime and even had innovative ideas for many things before they came up with that thing. Sir, let's turn on the machine now, but we need to warm it up. Why don't you take a look at another surprise first? Daphne said quickly. If there are no accidents, these scientific workers will be the cutting-edge existence of future scientific research in Earth City. It would be bad to offend them now. So Daphne still had the courage to interrupt Jia Yan's excitement. Oh? If you didn't tell me, I would have forgotten. Is this the surprise you were talking about? Jia Yan finally came back to his senses. What I saw on the right side of the huge gravitational wave equipment was a pile of dark metal components. Jia Yan didn't pay much attention to them before, but after taking a closer look, he immediately discovered what they were. It was actually made so quickly, Jia Yan was stunned. This bunch of stuff. If it were something else, Jia Yan would never be able to recognize it, but this is an exception. Because they were designed by Jia Yan himself. Battle gear. As early as half a month ago, Jia Yan handed over his conception and design to Daphne. He did not expect to have a finished product so soon. After all, this was different from the gravitational wave equipment that already had drafts. It can only be made after research by the scientific and technological staff. But I didn't expect it. It was actually made within half a month. You surprised me. But what is the performance of this equipment? Can it achieve the effect I said? Jia Yan became interested and stepped in front of the pile of components. Daphne praised him so much when she saw him. She immediately laughed, knowing that she also spent countless energy. As for the technology workers at the rear and the workers who were urgently processing metal nearby, they all smiled. After all, they were all participants. Although it is impossible for the assassin to remember their names and appearances, after all, they all got it. Praise. Being able to appreciate one's own works is the greatest spiritual comfort for a scientific researcher and participant. That's right. Sir. This is the equipment you personally designed. We have achieved the parameters described above. However, it will also consume all the precious metals traded from Jinglaf. Next, the fleet may have a shortage of special metals. Fortunately, they can all be temporarily replaced and have little impact. Daphne explained. Very good, then I can put it on directly when I go back tomorrow. Jia Yan stepped forward equally excitedly. Examine the pile of metal objects placed on the ground one by one. Praising while looking at him. But I didn't put it on. Because these things are extremely troublesome to wear, Jia Yan doesn't want to wear them today. After a long time, the big mosquito finished its inspection. And those scientific researchers who were praised one by one also left with smiles. In fact, De Funi did not explain it clearly to Jia Yan. In other words, it doesn't feel that difficult, but in fact, being able to complete two such huge projects in more than half a month can be said to be the result of almost the entire efforts of number 3 dockyard. And those main workers have been working hard for half a month, and many of them have barely had a break, not to mention that some races are the same as the people on Earth. I need to sleep, but after holding on for so long, I am so tired that I want to sleep now. After they left, Daphne was still where she was. She was also extremely tired. If the staff were extremely tired, then she was at least many times more tired than them. After all, the entire Earth City fleet is under her control. The initial development within half a month depends on her in all aspects, so it is normal to be tired. Sir, I don't think I can return to Earth with you tomorrow. Daphne was silent for a while, and then said. Jia Yan said nothing. In fact, he had already thought about it before, maybe De Funi would not go with him. Although this woman also wanted to return to Earth, in fact, she seemed to have slowly found someone in this Earth City. A sense of belonging, Jia Yan can see that she can't live without this force. Moreover, she cannot let go of the things in Earth City. After all, other existences cannot replace the two of them. If Daphne wants to lead the Earth City fleet back to the solar system, then she must stay to control and lead all aspects. I know, I'll go back by myself tomorrow. Jia Yan was silent for a while before saying. He knew that the current Daphne would probably not use any tricks to harm him, and that there were so many helpers who could not help her, because helping Daphne would not be in line with their interests in joining Earth City. Only under the leadership of a star-level powerhouse can Earth City develop. This is a reputation that De Funi cannot achieve no matter how hard she works. De Funi was very touched by Big Mosquito's understanding and immediately added, Your Excellency can bring 2 strong men with a small stature and some weaker subordinates. Through the last experience, we can conclude that Your Excellency will be roughly able to survive behind you to avoid the conclusions of some strong men. You can definitely try it. That way, when you get to Earth, you will have some useful subordinates. You can try it, Jia Yan reluctantly nodded. Although he is not attached to power or anything, if there are some available people to help, then it is also a good thing for him. After all, he does not have to do everything himself. It's up to you to help me decide on the candidate. You're better at this. I'll take a rest first and prepare for tomorrow. Jia Yan interrupted De Funi, who was about to continue talking, and took a long step to the side. He didn't have too many thoughts about Daphne's unwillingness to go with her. After all, it was a good choice for her to stay here and lead the Earth fleet. On the contrary, when Jia Yan mentioned that he would return to Earth tomorrow, he felt a sense of timidity about being close to home, with mixed feelings in his heart. He came to a quiet corner temporarily created for him by the shipyard. It was isolated from the outside world with some simple metal sheets. Thanks to brother I don't know what time it is and other book friends who have tipped and subscribed, there will be a new chapter soon, Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito author, Bulletin U. Chapter 494. Jia Yan looked at the environment. \U003C \U003E. Around this space, there are preserved viewing windows from when it was a commercial spaceship. Of course, they are not real, but they are mapped to the outside world through the perspective of the external camera, as if seeing it with one's own eyes. Jia Yan crawled on the ground. The cold metal ground made him miss the Earth's warm and fragrant ground even more. We can return to Earth tomorrow. Big Mosquito looked out the window at the scenery of the universe. Even now, the experience of the Shoals galaxy still seemed like a dream, which made him feel incredible. But everything is real. He has gained a lot and experienced a lot in this galaxy. Now, he can already define his trip this time. Overall, it was a good journey. Not only was it more powerful, but it also gave me an understanding of the real starry sky civilization, and gave me an intuitive understanding and interpretation of the so-called alien. These things are very necessary for Jia Yan's current strength. If he was still on Earth now, it was uncertain whether he could carry out this mutation. After all, mutation, Jia Yan found that it was not only related to the body, but also seemed to be closely related to the environment and resources. If he stays on Earth, he may not be able to reach the star level in his lifetime. Fortunately, everything is coming to an end. Even these spacecraft are now slowly leaving the main area of Shoals star. It may not be long before the speed continues to increase to a certain level, and they may all fly towards the Earth. Jia Yan looked at the scenery outside the window. At this time, the Shoals main sequence star behind him, that is, the gray-yellow star, had slowly moved away and turned into a bright but not eye-catching star in the sky. At least the battleships of the powerful civilization in the gray-yellow star are unlikely to continue to pursue them. The destination of these spaceships in Earth City will become the solar system in a straight line distance. It is said that during the flight, they will encounter a wandering planet and some interstellar material areas, where the Earth City fleet will work hard to search for available metals and other materials to replenish supplies. In this way, it will not be extremely difficult to persist to the Earth. But overall, the fleet is still full of danger and uncertainty. Not only the supplies, but also the stability of the fleet's spacecraft, as well as the stability of the internal personnel, are a huge test. But there is one biggest advantage, that is, regardless of the distance, these speeds cannot be regarded as top-notch cargo spacecraft, etc., and it may take more than 10 or 20 years to sail in the future. It is possible to reach the Earth, but in fact these times, the members of the spaceship don't really need to experience it completely on their own. Because the theory of time equals space has been proposed in the theory of relativity. Because of their extremely fast speed, these creatures will not experience such a terrifying time in the spacecraft, but they will feel that it does not take too long to reach the solar system. The navigation experts in Earth City once speculated that the time it takes to reach the solar system may be only about a year according to the senses of all members. And actually, Earth City is actually advancing through a unique space theory. They can almost achieve the speed of light that is originally unreachable by taking a shortcut. This is the so-called curvature navigation technology. This technology has also been proposed by some scientists on Earth, but it has been applied in aliens. In a nutshell, the spacecraft travels through a distortion of space, and this distortion can be man-made. It could also be the space distortion that already exists in the universe. After using space in this way, the spacecraft can reach or exceed the speed of light that was originally impossible to reach. It seems that Daphne still has a lot to do in the future. I can understand that she can't go back with me. But if she can't go back, then I will definitely need someone who can take care of my worries about things on Earth. The presence of help. After all, there are metal monsters there, as well as the exploration ships of the two major civilizations. They all need someone who can understand their existence and give me advice. After Jia Yan thought a lot, he concluded a few things that must be solved. After thinking for a short time, he summarized almost every aspect, but he was so upset that he couldn't continue at all. Simply lay down on the ground and get up. In the metal floor, there is the sound transmitted by the vibration of the machine. The not so powerful sounds represented that the spacecraft was operating at high speed. Listening to the sounds of these machines, Jia Yan felt how powerful they were, and also felt that those alien civilizations were actually extremely powerful. To be able to build these powerful spaceships that sail through the stars, if he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, Jia Yan might not have been able to believe that there really were intelligent civilizations in the universe, and it was even harder to believe that these civilizations were actually so close to the Earth. Maybe some things are just a blindfold. People on Earth used to desperately search for aliens, but they didn't know that external intelligence is not that hard to find, let alone that alien civilizations don't care about the Earth as much as they think. If the Earth hadn't possessed astral matter, which is what Jia Yan once thought was the blue matter, then they might not have the slightest interest in the Earth, a planet that, although it has intelligent creatures, does not have the ability to reach their level. But all this changed after the emergence of blue matter. The Earth may still be full of so-called metal monsters, and it is still a scene of hell. Jia Yan can't even imagine what kind of doomsday the Earth will become after many years. Of course, things may not reach such an exaggerated level. Maybe humans have defeated the metal monsters by their own strength. Just thinking of those metal monster buildings and the red light cannons, Jia Yan felt that this kind of the possibility will be very, very small. Everything can be revealed tomorrow. The scientific and technological workers over there, after a brief rest, continued to be busy. They were testing various data for tomorrow's gravitational wave equipment to ensure the safety of the equipment. The technicians and researchers responsible for building metal equipment are also conducting various inspections on the equipment. Even now, when they look at some of the ingenious ideas designed by Jia Yan himself, they will still exclaim in amazement. Sleepless night. Finally, Jia Yan saw that the time on his brain had reached early morning. Of course, there was no sunlight in the universe, so he could only rely on the clock to judge the time. He stood up from the ground. "Daifuni, are you ready?" The big mosquito makes a clear sound. "Sir, everything is ready. There is no problem with the data of the gravitational wave equipment, and your equipment is also ready. I have also prepared 10 people for you, you can come out and screen them." Daifuni is like a lark. The beautiful voice came through. Jia Yan stepped out of the compartment, his huge body making the entire space suddenly narrow. There are already some people and things arranged neatly in front of you. After a busy night, not only did the gravitational wave equipment seem to become more refined overnight. His set of equipment also has some tiny parts. Daphne stood proudly in front of all the creatures, and behind her was a very anxious creature. Each of these monsters was selected by Daifuni. Among them were powerful men, some scientific men, and some who could make suggestions. There were 10 in total, all selected by Ren Jiayan. Regarding the next mission, these Earth City members did not know because of Jia Yan's upcoming absence. Daphne was not prepared to say it out loud, even if word of mouth might spread from the technicians due to the construction of the gravitational wave equipment, but as long as the official did not admit it, there would be no big in the public. Jia Yan looked at the staff over there, and then turned his attention to the brand new gravitational wave equipment without saying anything. Over the course of one night, it became more refined, making people believe it a little more. "How is it? Is the machine ready for use?" he asked. "It's enough. We passed a test last night and the general band is pointing to the Earth. But if you can't withstand the invasion of gravitational waves, you may die in it." Daphne nodded. "Okay, what else do I need to pay attention to?" "If it's not necessary, start preparing immediately." Jia Yan felt a little relieved after hearing what she said, and then said with a hint of impatient urgency. Daphne sighed helplessly, and then said, "The first thing is the equipment problem. We have tested this equipment. The material can resist gravitational waves for about 10 minutes, but the time flow rate inside the gravitational waves is likely to be different from the outside world. So you'd better put your equipment behind you after entering, and wear it again when you get to Earth." Jia Yan nodded indifferently. There is a problem with the equipment. Jia Yan can understand this problem. After all, not strong metal can resist gravitational waves. Even Jia Yan doubts whether a strong person like Odawa can resist gravity. The invasion of waves, because the main reason for the destruction caused by gravitational waves, is a decomposition force. Perhaps Jia Yan can resist this force because of the unique structure of the evolved beast in his body. Without the existence of this kind of structure, it would be impossible to resist the energy of gravitational waves. In addition, as I just said, about these personnel, there are 10 selected personnel here. They are all outstanding personnel in several aspects. If you have the ability, I suggest you bring them all. However, if you cannot use gravity if Bonii protects it, then it's okay to reduce 1 or 2 members. Daifuni introduced the names of the members to Jia Yan and what they were good at. 10 people. Jia Yan lowered his head and pondered. In fact, Daphne's idea was very good. These 10 creatures are good at covering all aspects, and some even possess several specialties. It would be very gratifying to remove any one of them. After all, the Earth that Jia Yan is going to return to may be an extremely complicated situation. In the future, he may even have to engage in a head-on battle with the exploration ships of 2 civilizations. The combatants cannot be missing, some scientists cannot be missing, and the tactical analysts cannot be missing. Oh, that is, the noodle man cannot be missing. Jia Yan calculated in his heart, feeling a little headache. It's better to take them all with you. I'll try my best to protect their safety. Jia Yan suddenly made up his mind. Okay, then bring these people with you, and some of them are not that tall and can hide in your equipment. This is another safety guarantee. When I followed you here, I lost consciousness. If they can survive under any circumstances, they should be able to survive too. Daphne nodded, having no doubts about Big Mosquito's decision. Just like that, after continuing to discuss it for a while. Okay, it's time for me to go, Daifuni. I'm relying on you here. I hope we can meet again in 10 or 20 years. Jia Yan looked at the beautiful woman who was only as tall as his front foot and said in a voice. He has now changed his mind about Daphne and considers her a trustworthy partner. Of course, this is assuming she doesn't mess with the gravitational wave equipment. Haha, sir, you have forgotten that the time flow rate in gravitational waves is also different. Because this gravitational wave equipment was built in a hurry, you may be trapped in it for longer than last time. So you will probably be trapped in it for a longer time than last time. It took more than 2 years to get stuck in it. So it may not take us 20 years to see it. Well, I hope you can successfully catch the exploration ship and go back before it reaches Earth. Daifuni smiled slightly, and then took a few steps back. The members behind her who were chasing Jia Yan were ordered to walk in front of Jia Yan one by one in confusion. They still don't know what kind of mission they are going to carry out. Only the noodle man who has been following Daifuni as a staff member has passed the conversation between Jia Yan and Daifuni. For their actions, there is a hint of speculation. But even he didn't dare to think that he would actually have to use a weird device to directly enter an incredible space jump, because that was something that so many civilizations couldn't do. Jia Yan brought his own equipment and led the members behind him, heading towards the gravitational wave device. This equipment has always been too big for Jia Yan. The 2 peak-level experts behind it are also about 20 meters high. 3 behemoths are stuffed in, making it almost impossible to move. But fortunately, the rest of the members are not that big, which makes the space a little bit more relaxed. Sir, and everyone, please get ready, we are about to turn on the instrument. The voice of a scientific researcher came from outside. Click. Jia Yan only felt a faint light flashing before his eyes. After that, his body seemed to be torn apart violently, and a strange invisible force came to invade him. Gravitational waves? Jia Yan is very familiar with this kind of energy. He once stayed in the gravitational waves for a continuous period of time. At that time, he even protected the woman Daifuni. Experiencing this energy again at this time, the ripples in his heart finally showed a hint of excitement. Earth, I'll be back soon. Boom 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 boom. The intense light of gravitational waves continuously spreads through the metal in front of you. What originally looked like a simple metal wall, now actually appeared an extremely deep passage, filled with bright light, which were all tidal patterns of gravitational waves. These waves of energy came one after another, impacting the body of the big mosquito in the outside world. Wow, a huge monster behind was lightly touched by a gravitational wave. It suddenly opened its mouth and spurted out a stream of blood. The terrifying power caused him to be seriously injured. Don't leave my back, hide. Jia Yan shouted loudly to a life form behind him. In fact, it was mainly said to the two peak heaven level experts. The other existences were much smaller than them. They could be very safe by hiding behind Jia Yan. I don't know what this gravitational wave device is made of. When the gravitational wave tidal energy reaches the closed door of the device, a trace of energy will be mapped out, cancelling out the gravitational wave energy. However, this state could not last long. Several shock waves caused the energy to collapse. It seemed that there was nothing in the world that gravitational waves could not defeat unless it was someone like Jia Yan. Rush. When Jia Yan saw the scenery behind him, his brainwave power suddenly wrapped up, hiding all the chasing life forms and the entire set of equipment behind his back, and rushed towards the gravitational wave. Ba ba ba. As soon as he stepped into the gravitational wave, the door behind seemed to be closed suddenly, and Daphne's voice shouting, "Sir, take care," also disappeared in an instant. Finally, entering here means leaving an extremely far distance from the Shoals galaxy. Even if I regret it now, it is impossible. Jia Yan felt that his body was constantly being invaded by the tide of gravitational wave energy, and energy was constantly being slapped from all directions. But in general, the energy in the direction of his back is not very large. The powerful energy impact in the front creates an energy vacuum in the rear. But gravitational waves are really scary. Find the book Garden. The terrifying energy roar caused several weak beings, such as scientists, to be knocked unconscious by the energy noise. Several other strong men quickly devoted some of their attention to protecting the weak ones. At the same time, each of them was dumbfounded, looking at the scene in front of them as if the sky was shattering, and it didn't look like they were in the universe at all, and they became speechless. Where is this place? What are we going to do? The sharp nails of one of the two powerful heaven-level experts accidentally touched an area on Jia Yan's back that could not be taken care of. The nails were almost instantly it turned into ashes, and he was so frightened that he quickly retracted his claws, extremely frightened. However, these existential fears did not affect Jia Yan's mood, especially when he found that his body was now safer against these gravitational waves, and he immediately let go of his uneasiness. Earth, I'm coming back. The big mosquito's eyes were shining. End of this volume. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 495. A new volume and a new atmosphere. Thank you to all the brothers and sisters who have supported Bulletin U until now. Seeing that this is all true love, give me a kiss, okay? Haha. This is a planet full of deep blue. The vast expanse of ocean makes this beautiful planet like a treasure, like a pearl dotted in the dark universe, beautiful and full of attraction. White clouds are suspended above the Earth's surface. They are low in pressure over the Earth, and arcs flash from time to time. That is a sign of thunderstorms. Below the cumulonimbus clouds, the ground seems to have become a vast ocean. Hua hua hua. Big drops of rain fell on the soil, causing shallow splashes. This is a thunderstorm weather. Although it is not a good day, it may not be a good day to go out in the eyes of people on Earth in the past. But things are different now. The coming of this thunderstorm not only did not make people complain, but many people were celebrating. Bang bang bang. There was the sound of footsteps running on the muddy road. The person who made the footsteps was a little boy who looked to be only 4 or 5 years old. He kept giggling, as if he hadn't moved on the ground for a long time, so everything was a very new experience for him. Brother! Brother! Behind this little boy is another little baby girl who looks 1 or 2 years younger. She has obviously just learned to walk, and she is staggering and trying to catch up with the little boy in front of her. But clumsy movements can't be done anyway. Brother! She ignored the raindrops hitting her body and let out a childish laugh. The voice calling her brother showed that she was the sister of the little boy in front of her. Ting Yun, don't run too fast. A female voice came from behind the 2 children. This is a woman who looks very familiar. At this time, this woman is constantly observing the left and right, and seems to be a little nervous. Don't worry, there are no metal monsters around here anymore. Our gorillas have already strangled them here a few days ago. Another man walked out from behind. This was a man who also looked familiar. But at this time, he seemed to be much stronger than before, and his cheeks were also covered with large and small scars. If you look closely, there are still some fatal scars on his body, and he is obviously a warrior who has experienced wind and rain battles. Yes, yes. You gorillas are so powerful. You don't even think about who provoked those metal monsters and made us have to move in the rain. The woman couldn't help but get angry at the man. She looks to be in her 30s, but her age has not damaged her beauty. On the contrary, her maturity has given her a hint of inexplicable charm. This is a woman who gets better and better as she gets older. But it was obvious that she was already married to a famous woman. Looking at the way she treated the 2 children and the man, we knew the identity of their family. Tong Yu, you're wrong to say that. If it weren't for our resistance, would there be widespread peace around here? Maybe the metal monster army would have attacked long ago. The man showed an unhappy expression, but when he saw his wife's glaring eyes, he suddenly didn't dare to say anything and became speechless. Listening to her words, people realized that the woman was actually the girl who had been in contact with Jia Yan many times before, Ye Tongyu. But time flies, and I don't know how long it took. This beautiful girl in the past is no longer a young beauty, but has become a beautiful woman full of mature style. As for the burly man, although the change was greater than that of the woman, it was still vaguely possible to tell from his face that he was the college boy who had been with Ye Tongyu, that is, Jiang Shiming. These 2 people got together because of the giant mosquito. There was even a time when they were extremely keen to investigate everything about the giant mosquito. But after all, the giant mosquito race is still like the meteor that streaked across the earth. After being in the earth scenery for a while, it disappeared directly. No one even knows whether they are just one. In order to pursue life, these 2 young men and women finally came together while running and fighting along the way. And that pair of children are their descendants. The past is just the past, but they may occasionally recall in the evening chatting that in those distant memories, it seems that they all had a ridiculous pursuit of the giant mosquito race. Even now, when they talk to others about the big mosquitoes back then, they will still argue with everyone who refutes and get red-faced. Maybe this is their obsession. But that's all in the past. Today's Earth, protecting future generations is the most important thing. Well, I don't know when this war will end. Ye Tongyu did not argue with Jiang Shiming, but gently stroked the messy hair on the back of her neck. She was holding an umbrella, but she didn't like a pair of children. They were soaked in the rain. Yes, those metal monsters have vaguely increased their attack power recently. Except for rainy days like this, which will reduce the attack power a little, at other times, the entire ground is dangerous. Jiang Shiming raised his head when he saw Ye Tongyu looking at the sky. He didn't think there was anything nice about rainy days before. This moment seems to bring back many memories, making this man who has finally grown up and become the backbone of his family reveal a touch of nostalgia and yearning. Suddenly, Jiang Shiming let out a surprised chuckle. Click. 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 A sound of constant movement, with a hint of rusty metal friction, continues to spread in the air. As people on Earth today, everyone obviously knows what this sound represents. They are the enemies of the people on Earth for the past 10 years, and they are also the culprits who have turned the beautiful land into a mess, metal monsters. In the past 10 years, the number of metal monsters does not seem to have increased much. These guys that have existed for 10 years have rusted on some joints due to the influence of heavy rain and air humidity. The simple structure cannot keep them 10 years. Years of flexibility. So most of them will make a horrifying friction sound when moving. But this does not affect the red light combat power of the metal monster. The battle between the giant mosquitoes caused countless casualties to the metal monsters. The great 17-meter giant mosquito ancestor even caused the collapse of Australia's largest kilometer-level red light building. Even in that battle, even it was the last battle of the giant mosquito race. After that, they disappeared, but that sacrifice alone saved countless humans. Because of the significant decrease in metal monsters and the obvious weakening of the red light attack power of buildings in this area of China, humans began to have a chance to breathe. It is obviously not that simple for people on Earth to survive on the Earth for millions of years and even evolve a brilliant civilization. When they had a chance to breathe, the people on Earth began to burst out with powerful vitality. They changed their style of play. The large-scale cities before began to gradually fade into ruins. Human beings began to spread out in large areas, becoming scattered everywhere on the entire land. In this way, even if one area is attacked, other areas will still be saved. The metal monster red light building cannot achieve huge damage with one blow. Moreover, the firepower of the red light building was only relatively fierce in the first few years. After 3 years, it seemed that the metal monsters also knew that the red light attack no longer had much effect, so that they never saw the light shooting of the red light building again. Out. The rest are the metal monsters left behind. Although each of these monsters is extremely powerful. At its most powerful, one was even able to strangle an army of hundreds of people. However, when the people on Earth got used to their attacks method and after studying the shortcomings, the attack of the metal monster was greatly weakened. People began to disperse and develop guerrilla groups that existed everywhere in the region. And now Jiang Shiming has successfully become a high-level member of the guerrillas in an area. Today is a rainy day, which is when the metal monster is at its weakest, so he took his wife Yetongyu and the children out to get some fresh air. After all, the younger daughter has never seen what rain looks like until now. But I didn't expect that I would actually encounter a metal monster. Damn it! I thought it would rain and clean up the area, so I'm careless. There is a metal monster so close. It's just bad luck. Jiang Shiming ordered his wife to load the gun with a quick click and loaded the gun. This is a newly developed weapon. It is this latest weapon that allows the people on Earth to finally resist the powerful metal monsters. Moreover, this weapon has a deep relationship with the giant mosquito race, because it is the most powerful one. The big mosquito handed over some powerful combat machines that were different from the metal monsters to the Chinese military, and then made this weapon through research. Without it, the people on Earth might have been destroyed several times. At this time, Jiang Shiming stepped forward and rushed towards the metal monster that made a clicking sound. Come to mommy's side. Yetongyu shouted anxiously, causing the two children to quickly hug her. You go back and ask for help. I'll block it. Jiang Shiming dashed into the grass in one stride. Be careful yourself. Yetongyu looked at her husband nervously, bit her lip, and hugged the two children. Run towards the camp. Click, 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 click. Damn it, it's not one. When Jiang Shiming pushed aside the grass and saw the metal monster over there, he suddenly felt his scalp numb and a feeling of panic. It turns out that what is attacking is not just a metal monster, but something much bigger than that. More than 100 of them. It's over. The current strength of our camp is only 500 people. We still have no way to fight against more than 100 metal monsters. We must inform them to leave. Jiang Shiming took out the walkie-talkie, sent out a few sentences of the highest level alarm communication, and then turned off the communication. Continuing to crawl down, he found that his heart was beating nervously and crazily, which made him laugh at himself. He had gone through so many battles, but he was still so timid. If I leave now, Tongyu and the children will definitely be chased, so I have to delay. He forced himself to calm down and gently raised the gun in his hand. Snapped. The gunshot went off. Jiang Shiming didn't even look at the results, he just jumped towards the other side of the grass with all his strength. Sure enough, the moment he jumped away, there were dozens of red rays of light, almost grazing his body. Even though 10 years have passed, the shooting accuracy of the metal monsters is still so powerful and has not declined at all. But it was this precision that allowed Jiang Shiming to escape his life. Explosions caused by dozens of red lights rose up in the grass behind, and an extremely powerful sound wave pushed Jiang Shiming forward to roll and leap. He felt a burning pain in his back. He knew he was injured, but the battle continued. He didn't know how many times he had suffered this kind of injury, and in order to protect his wife and children, as long as he lived, he would never see it stop. Rolling on the ground, he darted behind the deep grass again with great agility. At the same time, he loaded the gun again and fired toward the rear. Snapped. With the sound of gunfire, another metal monster fell to the ground. That bullshit iron box, you've all rusted so much in 10 years. Go to hell. Jiang Shiming kept mumbling, and he didn't know which battle he developed this habit in. Anyway, it has now become one of his signature fighting habits. Boom boom boom. Crazy explosions began to ring out throughout the woods, and Jiang Shiming's figure kept looming in the grass. Even though he was constantly being splashed by flying gravel, there was still no sluggishness at all. Just when he felt that his body injuries were getting more and more serious, blood was flowing out from all the wounds, and he was almost losing his fighting power. Captain, run away. These metal monsters are not 100 at all, but 500. We are completely surrounded and cannot be stopped. Run away. Ah! The voice from the walkie-talkie made him feel as if he had fallen into an ice cellar, and his scalp exploded. The metal monsters' attack this time was not a small battle, but an army of 500 monsters. Sky. 500 metal monsters are simply not something that guerrillas like them can fight against. Even with powerful firearms, a confrontation with 500 metal monsters would definitely require an army of 5,000 people. Tell me to run away. Can I run away? If you want me to give up my wife and children, why don't you tell me to die? Jiang Shiming's eyes were filled with a blood-like color, and he almost went crazy. He has lived in a post-apocalyptic hell for 10 years, and he and his wife have been through thick and thin together, chasing mosquitoes together, escaping together, and supporting each other. After living like this, might he give up Tongyu and escape on his own? Impossible. Tongyu. I'm coming. Jiang Shiming stood up like crazy, raised his firearm, and flew away in the grass. Behind is the red light that is constantly shooting. Perhaps due to good fortune, Jiang Shiming was actually bathed in the sound of explosions and was not directly hit. He was only more seriously injured because of the continuous splashing of gravel. But this man didn't care at all at this time. If he loses his wife and children, his life will be meaningless. As they ran all the way, there seemed to be metal monsters everywhere in front of them, and the camp in front of them was completely engulfed in fire. Finally, he saw his wife holding the child in the crowd. Tong. Just when Jiang Shiming was covered in blood and wanted to call his wife, his eyes suddenly froze. In front of my wife, I saw 5 or 6 metal monsters, one after another, strangling the humans around them. At the same time, they turned their heads and delivered them to the barrel-like attack structure. Red light gradually began to appear and was about to spurt out. No! Jiang Shiming shouted wildly. The next moment, his beloved wife and children will die in the red light attacks of 5 or 6 metal monsters. Time seems to have stopped. He looked desperately at his little daughter who was being held by his wife. It seemed that she still didn't know what was going on. She was lying on Ye Tongyu's shoulder. When he saw his father behind him, he stretched out his cute little hand, chubby. A smile broke out on her little face and she waved to him. Maybe this is the last smile of farewell. Tears almost filled his eyes. At this moment, how much he wanted to replace his wife and children, but none of this could happen. After 10 years of surviving in the apocalypse, are we finally going to be separated forever? He doesn't allow that. If his wife and children really died, he would definitely die with them. Time finally passed by half a second again. The red color in the barrel of the metal monster finally bloomed, and in the next moment, it was about to shoot. But at this time, bo! A slightly shrill sound quickly spread through the air in the entire area. Jiang Shiming even vaguely saw that there seemed to be a pressure spreading rapidly in the surrounding air. This pressure was not directed at him, but it still made Jiang Shiming unable to move in an instant. Whether it was the movement towards his wife and children or the angry gunshot, it seemed that it had no effect at all at this time. The whole world, everything seemed to have stopped. Buzz buzz buzz. This unparalleled power has isolated the entire world. Find bookstore. Afterwards, Jiang Shiming saw those flying explosions in his eyes. The explosives lost their kinetic energy piece by piece and fell to the ground piece by piece. The bullets sprayed out of the muzzle also fell down, as if they had no effect at all. The resisting gorillas and metal monsters were frozen in battle, but no one could move. But the next moment, bang 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 bang. Each metal monster seemed to have a bomb in its head, and its head made an exploding sound. These metal monsters were actually completely destroyed one by one under the pressure of powerful forces. The 5 or 6 metal monsters aimed at Ye Tongyu and the child in her arms also exploded into a ball of fragments. After that, Jiang Shiming only felt that his body resumed its movements in an instant. Because he wanted to rush forward before, he almost fell over after regaining his freedom. What happened? Meow /U0026 by com first published. Almost everyone had the same expression as him. My lord, I'm glad you did. I don't know what civilization is so whimsical that it actually uses some mining machines as attack weapons. It's simply ridiculous. Jiang Shiming faintly heard a sudden voice above everyone's heads. He raised his head, and then his pupils suddenly shrank. Giant Mosquito. The following comments are free of charge. 13 volumes have been written, and from the first chapter to the present, which is more than 1.6 million words, it has not been updated for a day. No matter how bad the performance of this book is, Buletin feels that he has succeeded. At least I have become the kind of perseverance emperor who can hold my head high and my chest high, and I have become a being that I could only envy before. This feeling goes beyond grades, it's so cool. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Buletin. Chapter 496. About 500 meters in the air, a large group of strange-looking creatures are in the sight of the people on Earth below. Each of these monsters are unheard of before. Some of them resemble weird elongated noodle monsters, and some are like frogs that have been enlarged many times. What's even more eye-catching are the huge creatures. They are more than 10 or even 20 meters long. What shocked the gorillas below the most, or was dumbfounded, was a monster that these humans had been thinking about day and night, but had completely disappeared, the giant mosquito. But after disappearing for nearly 10 years, human beings initially missed it and later gradually accepted the disappearance of this friendly race. Now they suddenly saw one, which was far larger than the individual they had seen before. How could this not frighten all the people on Earth? This was a giant mosquito that was completely different in size from the giant mosquito I had seen before. It's more than 30 meters. You must know that the giant mosquito monster that used to be the largest on Earth is the giant mosquito ancestor that people on Earth still think is the strongest. It's only about 17 meters in length. And this 30-meter-long individual has not only doubled its body length. The overall look is simply overwhelming. If the one before was said to be the ancestor of the giant mosquito, then what about the current one, giant mosquito monkey king? Among all the monsters in the sky, this giant mosquito was the largest. Even the two individuals who were also about 20 meters in size were extremely respectful to it. Giant mosquito, how is it possible? Is it because I'm dazzled? Jiang Shiming kept mumbling, and he almost thought he was hallucinating before his death, because the giant mosquito that had not appeared for nearly 10 years appeared in front of him without any warning. It was simply unbelievable. Shiming, big mosquito. Did you see it? It's really a big mosquito. The voice of great surprise pulled Jiang Shiming back from his self-doubt. He saw Yetongyu with an ecstatic look on his face, holding two children who were also a little surprised and looking at the sky. Run towards him. So, all this is really not my fantasy anymore? The big mosquito is really back. Ha ha ha, Jiang Shiming pinched his arm, felt a burst of severe pain, and grinned happily. Only they have always believed that the giant mosquito has always been the same one, so they believe that the giant mosquito monster that appears now is still the same one. If this is really the case, then they have watched each other grow from a mosquito of a few centimeters to such a huge giant mosquito. A human being below let out a shocking exclamation. The big mosquito above looked calmly at the humans below. There were hundreds of humans below. This is the first time he has seen a familiar face in so long. It's not a monster with various appearances, nor is it the face of the Asta people that looks like Earthlings, but the details are not exactly the same. Completely authentic Earthlings. They are still his former compatriots, Chinese. Although Jia Yan's huge head could not express emotions, the surrounding monsters could still sense the emotional changes of their leader from the energy he released. The natives of this backward planet may be very important to adults. Each monster received the signal. The subordinates who had previously felt that they looked down on the Earthlings restrained themselves one by one. Contempt. No matter how backward this planet is, as long as they have the care of their leader, they will not dare to neglect it at all. And now these life forms also have a sense of fear at the terrifying strength that Jia Yan just showed in their eyes. Today's big mosquitoes are all blue. Because they had just escaped from the gravitational waves not long ago. The Earth City individuals brought here one by Jia Yan now look at Jia Yan as if they are seeing a terrifying beast. You know, they don't even dare to touch the so-called gravitational waves. No matter what it is, as long as it comes into contact with the tidal energy of gravitational waves, everything will be transformed into the most basic substance that even atoms and molecules are shattered, and it will be completely assimilated with the gravitational waves. However, under such conditions where it was impossible to survive, their assassin seemed not to be affected at all. In addition to showing his terrifying defense that even Ostergun god Odao could not defeat, there is no need for other back UPS to protect them all. What a terrifying defense this is. No wonder my lord dared to go head-to-head with terrifying strong men like Odao before. All the outstanding members of Earth City have a more odd view of the giant mosquitoes. They had just emerged from the gravitational waves not long ago. Jia Yan feels that the gravitational wave equipment produced by Daifuni's team is already very good. After all, it is more than 8 light-years away from the Earth. However, their precise delivery ability still accurately delivers this batch of creatures over the Earth. However, the sky is about 10,000 meters. When the situation just appeared, Jia Yan tore through the gravitational wave space, and after he led his men out, he found that a war was breaking out below. So he asked one of his subordinates who was at the peak of the heaven level to kill those metal monsters directly. You must know that the strong men at the peak of the heaven level are not much different from Jia Yan who left the Earth era. Moreover, they have undergone more systematic combat training and received more standardized knowledge of brainwave power, so their performance it definitely surpassed his peak level in the Earth era. The so-called metal monster, just like the monster who came to report, was simply a simple mining machine. He even wanted to laugh at it. Very good. Jia Yan didn't take it seriously either. His eyes were more focused on the body of the Earthling below. Although they were rescued in time, there were still many casualties among the people on Earth, and Jia Yan felt a little sorry. Suddenly, he saw two faces that seemed familiar. After thinking for a while, he gave instructions to his subordinates and flew downwards. Ah! He's down. Among the crowd below, some humans shouted in surprise. All humans suddenly became frightened. Although the giant mosquito race has always been described as a friendly race to the people of the Earth, and even in the past, the giant mosquito race could be said to have saved all the people on the Earth, but after nearly 10 years, I can't believe a giant mosquito monster suddenly appeared. God knows if this monster has the same attitude as the so-called giant mosquito race before. No one even knows whether this guy who looks like a giant mosquito, but whose body is extremely blue, is the same ethnic group as the previous giant mosquito race. Among these humans, only two of them did not move. That is Jiang Shiming and Ye Tongyu. The two men looked at the large mosquitoes that were gradually descending in the sky. Although there was fear in their eyes, they did not have any intention of avoiding them. Instead, the couple was holding a child each, and the family of four looked up at the huge monster floating in the sky. Not long after, a huge figure like a hill arrived. His body is so huge. The entire sky is covered. Bathed in the darkness caused by the giant mosquitoes, people trembled, and some even wanted to shoot. I mean no harm, please don't shoot. Suddenly, everyone on Earth heard a clear male voice. Jiang Shiming was startled for a moment, and then the smile gradually bloomed at the corner of his mouth. He had heard this voice before. That time was also the only conversation this man had with the big mosquito, and it was also the one he had been bragging about for so many years. So even after so many years, he still remembers this voice very clearly. Now that he suddenly heard the sound, he suddenly understood. The big mosquito is probably the same one. At least the one in front of me is the one who handed over several alien machines to the Earth's military back then. After all, he was the one who negotiated with the big mosquito back then. How could he not be familiar with this clear male voice? Put down the gun. Put down the gun. Don't even shoot. He quickly roared at the guerrilla fighters in all directions, causing those soldiers to be shocked and stop their movements. Seeing that the soldiers did not act rashly, Jiang Shiming let out a long breath, and then he raised his head solemnly. The big mosquito is only about 10 meters away from the ground. For him, this distance is almost as close as face to face. Hello, we meet again, Jiang Shiming said. Yes, we have met again. How many times has this met? We are really destined. Jia Yan tried his best to keep his voice gentle. How many times have we met? He admitted that he had seen it many times before. Jiang Shiming and Ye Tongyu looked at each other, and their hearts skipped a beat. When the giant mosquito said this, it almost meant that their thoughts were correct, that is, the giant mosquito had always been the same one. He was the one who saved their few centimeters in the factory before. He was also the 10-centimeter individual who saved the little girl and caused a sensation. After that, he was the one who conquered Japan, fought against metal monsters, and even saved the entire human race. Now he is bigger, and definitely more powerful, Back on Earth. It was as if a dose of stimulant had suddenly been taken in their hearts. They were trembling for a moment and couldn't say a word. Instead, Jia Yan looked at the two children in their arms with interest. The little baby girl among them was sucking her chubby fingers and looking at him with big watery eyes, not afraid at all. Is this your child? Congratulations. Jia Yan looked at these two tiger-headed children and remembered that when he was at the Northeast Wild Tiger Factory, he had secretly helped Zhang Shiming, a guy who looked a little stupid. Now, come to think of it, does he have his share of credit for the birth of these two children? Thinking of the past, there was even more memories in his heart. Now it seems. He traveled back and forth to the Earth through gravitational waves twice. Sure enough, the flow of time is different. Many years have passed here on Earth, right? I wonder how your parents are doing? Will my little sister also get married? Thinking of this, he could hardly help but miss him. However, the Earth has obviously changed a lot since he left. Even if you look for it, it may not be the same small mountain village as before. So much time has passed, and this little time is not missing. Yes, this is our child. Zhang Shiming wanted to say something, but he found that his mouth was dry and he couldn't say anything at all, and he couldn't find a topic. Haha, I have been away from the Earth for a while. Can you tell me what has happened in recent times? Jia Yan looked at the surrounding scenery. When he was at high altitude, he found that the entire Earth seemed to have the side of civilization retrogressing. Not only were many of the villages and cities visible from 10,000 meters turned into ruins, but there were also many deep pits formed by fighting on the ground and roads, and they were full of devastation. Okay. During the time you left, the Earth was extremely miserable. Zhang Shiming finally regained his composure, and he began to talk eloquently, giving a general summary of what had happened to the Earth over the years. 10 minutes later, Jia Yanke nodded gently. I know. Trust me, peace will return to Earth soon. Goodbye. The big mosquito moved its body and slowly rose into the sky. Just as Jia Yan thought, the Earth was extremely miserable after he left. The footsteps of the metal monsters never stopped. The only thing that surprised Jia Yan was that the people on Earth actually started to fight because of his contribution. Capital. Including the year when Jia Yan was on Earth, the war between the two sides has lasted for more than 10 years. In 10 years, the people of the Earth suffered heavy losses, with only 10 houses and 9 empty houses, and more than 3 billion people were killed or injured. The current total population of the Earth is only about 3 billion. Jia Yan sighed deeply in his heart. You guys listen to my orders. Coming to the sky, 10 monsters are still waiting here. There was a fierce light in Jia Yanfu's eyes. Among the Earth City creatures he brought with him, 2 were at the peak of the heaven level, and the remaining 3 were compound talents, all of whom were at the beginning of the heaven level and could temporarily act as strong men. You. Jia Yan quickly pointed out the 5 monsters. Use this as the center point, spread out, and destroy all the mining machines you just saw. Use your fastest speed, do you understand? Understood, the 5 named monsters agreed in unison. Very good, let's take action, Jia Yan nodded. Whirring. 5 powerful monsters spread out in all directions and flew away quickly. All of them are above the heaven level. With such strong fighting power, even the weakest one is not much different from Jia Yan when he left the Earth. You must know that at that time, he was already able to destroy a huge metal monster kilometer building on his own. Even the extremely powerful peak heaven level was more than a step stronger than Jia Yan of that era. Except for Jia Yan, the 2 of them are invincible existences on Earth. You guys, just follow me to my aircraft. Use your expertise immediately to develop weapons. Jia Yan spread his wings, and the brainwave power enveloped the remaining 5 talents in science and technology or other fields, and flew towards the Earth's atmosphere. but he still remembers that there is an aircraft belonging to him parked outside the Earth's atmosphere. But compared to him now, that aircraft may have been too small and could not accommodate the huge mosquitoes now. After putting them in the aircraft, I have to start looking for my parents and little sister. I hope they are safe. The body that quickly regained its black color quickly passed through the atmosphere. Several monsters in the sky quickly left in all directions, without affecting the astonishment of the humans below at all. On the ground, each gorilla member was in a mess. Giant mosquito? Oh my God, is it really a giant mosquito? Is he here to save us? Yes, he brought so many companions here, he must be here to save us. One by one, the gorilla members were stunned and seemed unable to stop. They began to speculate about the arrival of the big mosquito. Stop talking. No matter what the purpose of the big mosquito is, our first priority is to treat the wounded, so act quickly. Jiang Shiming let out a loud shout, causing all the gorilla fighters to tremble. Looking at their companions who were still lying on the ground and moaning, they all felt ashamed and rushed to treat them. As for Jiang Shiming himself, his face turned red and he ran stumblingly. His physical injuries were actually not serious, but at this moment he felt that he didn't care so much at all. Behind, Yetangyu was also holding her child, to follow her husband. Arriving outside a collapsed tent, Jiang Shiming pulled like crazy and finally took out a laptop-sized device. Yetangyu didn't say much, but just started working together to pull up several antennas of the device. Jiang Shiming's hands and feet were trembling a little, which was caused by excitement. After adjusting the button in the device to a certain band. This is the 00352 Guerrilla Squad. This is the 00352 Guerrilla Squad. Please answer when the headquarters receives it. Jiang Shiming kept shouting loudly into the microphone, and his voice unconsciously took on an excited tone. Headquarters received it? Headquarters received it. Not long after, an interfering sound came from the loudspeaker. I am the leader of the 00352 guerrilla team, Jiang Shiming. I have something important to report. Jiang Shiming found that his mouth was so dry that he could hardly speak. Carrot meow by Ge***. A pair of gentle catkins gently touched the man's palm. It's Yetangyu. At the same time, the little boy lying in his father's arms also stretched out his small palm and placed it on the palms of the two adults. The little baby girl, after looking at her mother and brother, also pulled out her sucking fingers in a daze, and placed her chubby palm on her brother's palm. The family seems to be giving Jiang Shiming courage. He nodded excitedly, and the trembling seemed to have stopped. After taking a deep breath, he shouted loudly. Here is the report from Team 00352. The giant mosquito is back. Thanks to the brothers of Uiage for the 2 times of 1888, thank you, thanks also to other book friends who have subscribed, many thanks. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito author, Bulletin U. Chapter 497. There is a dense cloud in the sky. This is not a good weather, there are some lightning and thunder everywhere. A small team of more than 20 people lurked in the dense bushes. Suddenly, a middle-aged man with a full beard looked at him. He gestured to the people around him, and the others all looked solemn. Not long after, a movement slowly appeared deep in the jungle. This group of people immediately became serious. A creeping wild boar appeared in front of everyone. Before the extremely vigilant wild boar noticed anything, the bearded man let out a loud shout. Everyone held either bows and arrows or spears with metal spiked blades in their hands. Tigers and tigers surged out, and various weapons attacked the wild boar. Not long after, the wild boar's pitiful howl of pain was heard in the forest. Ha ha, if anything is better than it was 10 years ago, it would be these wild animals. Each of them is getting stronger and stronger as they live. More than 20 people were walking along the mountain road carrying the dead wild boar, which was their daily ration. Who says it's not the case? In the past 10 years, these wild animals have become more alive and nourished, Beard also said with emotion. That's right. This middle-aged man is the bearded man whom Jia Yan knows. His name has appeared before, but he himself feels that it does not suit his own name, Chen Pengxian. This name is a bit, he is squeamish, so he still likes to be called his nickname, Bearded. After many years, this man, who was almost 30 years old at the time, has become a middle-aged man. But he is still vigorous, with some scars leaving traces on his body. These are the marks of a man. This group of people ran along the mountain road, and when the sun set, they finally arrived at a small village where humans gathered. This is a village where you can see many traces of ruins, but many of the ruins have been swallowed up by weeds and trees because no one has taken care of them for too many years. Only part of the entire village can now accommodate human habitation. Brother Chen, are you back? It seems that today's harvest is good. Suddenly, a gentle female voice appeared outside the village. When everyone looked around, they saw a petite woman with an exquisite figure and a perfect charm, flashing out from behind a ruined wall. Xiaolin, is it your turn to be on duty again today? The bearded man frowned. Xiao Yao really lets his wife do so many things. No, I have to do it myself. Everyone has taken great care of my family. I am embarrassed to continue to be everyone's burden. The woman smiled and shook her head. Her mature face seems to have some traces of a girl, and her faint apple face makes her look much younger than she actually is, as if she is a girl in her 20s. But if Jia Yan were here, he would never notice her beauty. Instead, he would be filled with emotions for the first time. Because this is his biological sister who he takes great care of and has always had a good relationship with, Jia Lin. Today, Jia Lin is a mature woman in her late 30s. But her appearance hasn't changed much, and she still has a bit of a girl's ignorant look. There are not many injuries or vicissitudes of life and death seen on his body, which shows that he has not suffered too much over the years. But if Jia Yan hears the conversation between Bearded and him, he might become furious. That young bespectacled killer Xiao Yao actually married his own little sister. Although he doesn't have much sister control attribute, Jia Yan is his brother after all. Every brother will always feel a little uncomfortable when the lovely sister he has always cared for marries another man. Xiaolin, don't say that, our mission is to protect you. The bearded man grinned happily, and then led everyone to move forward. Jia Lin watched them leave, and then let out a long sigh. She looked at the sky and seemed a little stunned. 11 years have passed since my brother passed away. Over the years, not only has their family changed, but the world has also changed a lot. Although so many years have passed, Jia Lin feels sad every time she thinks of her brother Jia Yan. If my brother was still here, would things at home be better? Although she didn't think her brother was that capable, Jia Lin still thought so. In fact, Jia Lin still has a lot of doubts until now. That is, for her family, the biggest contributors to their survival to this day are Xiao Yao, who has become her husband, and his companion Whisker. Although the identities of these two people are still kept secret until now, she can guess that they may not have been good people in the past. She didn't know if she married Xiao Yao because of love or because she wanted to repay her kindness. In the past 10 years, too many things had happened, which made her, a girl who was already a bit ignorant, even at this age. I still can't understand my own heart. But the more she learns about the truth, the more doubts she has. Especially for her husband and his beard. Why did he help me like that back then? And giant mosquitoes come to the rescue again and again. Jia Lin finds all of this incredible when she thinks about it now. You must know that they are the giant mosquito clan. Among the existing human beings, everyone is extremely grateful to the great benefactor of mankind. Their family had even seen this kind of existence alone many times before. Xiao Yao and the others may have something to do with the giant mosquito. Unfortunately, the giant mosquito is no longer on Earth. Almost everyone on Earth knows that giant mosquitoes have left the Earth. Because there is no news of the death of the giant mosquito, nor the news of this race continuing to appear in the past 9 years, there is only one explanation: the giant mosquito race has left the Earth as a whole for unknown reasons. Maybe others don't believe it. But I have always understood that that big mosquito has always been the same one. It is also the patron saint who has always protected our home. He will definitely come back. Jialin looked at the sky and thought firmly. Just when Jialin is still recalling the past, a huge shadow streaked across the sky. Huh, Jialin was startled, and then her eyes couldn't help but stare. Boom 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 boom. 5 kilometers away, huge explosions resounded. Violent shock waves echoed in the sky. It was like the shock wave of a Category 10 typhoon, which knocked down a large number of trees, and flames shot into the sky, turning the entire Earth red. This shows how terrifying the battle is. Jialin here was also hit by a huge impact and was shaken to the point of being unsteady. She couldn't help but reach out to hold onto the wall while swaying. What's over there? Jialin looked at the devastating scenery not far away with a look of horror on her face. No. Kikai is still at home. Not long after, Jialin's expression changed and she ran towards the back. The whole village was shaking, and some ruined walls made an overwhelming sound, and were about to collapse. Boom boom boom. Amidst the noise, the cries of some children were mixed with the shouts of adults, making the ruined village look extremely panicked. Many people gathered outside the house. All of these people are dressed in rickety clothes, and most of them are young and old, weak and sick. However, among these people, there was also a small team composed of young men. These people supported children and old people, and came to the open space one by one amid the sound of explosions. What's going on? Most people still don't know what happened. They just feel that they haven't heard such a terrifying explosion for many years. Could it be those metal monsters? Most people thought of this. No. I just saw the shadow of a huge monster. It was probably caused by him. Jialin panted and made a sound behind everyone. People turned around one by one, including one man who looked familiar. This man wears glasses. Although he is no longer so young, the shrewd look on his face is more eye-catching. He is Xiao Yao, one of the 2 killers. And now his identity is the leader of this small village, and he is also Jialin's current husband. Xiaolin, what did you say? Huge monster. He was so excited that he quickly ran to Jialin and asked with concern on his face. Daddy, a childish voice came from Jialin's arms, a little girl under 1 year old. She is pretty and looks very similar to Jialin. She also has a chubby apple face. Kikai, be good, the young man wearing glasses said to the child with a smile, and then stared at Jialin, who was holding the little girl. Yes, a very huge monster. But I only saw a little shadow, so I don't know what he looks like specifically. Jialin pursed her lips and said. Let's go. Let's go to a higher place and have a look. The young man wearing glasses waved his hand, and after looking at each other with a beard, with a mixture of expectation and worry on his face, he led a few people to a high ground in the village. Xiaolin, is what you said true? Jialin was about to follow her with her child in her arms, but she didn't want to hear a slightly older voice from behind. Crooked man, crooked mother-in-law. The little girl in Jialin's arms giggled and reached out to the 2 people behind her for a hug. Kikai knows how to call grandpa and grandma, she's so smart. The middle-aged woman among the 2 people behind her held the baby girl in her arms with a doting look on her face. Upon closer inspection, these 2 people are Jiayana's parents, who are nearly 60 years old. Another 10 years have passed, and the 2 elders have become older and older. They used to be called middle-aged, but now it is not impossible to call them old. They hugged the little girl that Jialin held before very lovingly. It was not difficult to tell from the names that this little girl was actually Jialin's biological child. It's true. What I just saw with my own eyes, that monster may be as big as the big mosquito before. No. It's even bigger, Jialin recalled it and said. Then is it possible that he is, a big mosquito? Jia Sheng stopped teasing his granddaughter and looked at Jialin with concern. You must know that their family seems to have many connections with the big mosquito. Even being able to survive to this day may be due to the big mosquito. Jialin tilted her head and thought for a while, with a confused look. She still looked like a little girl, not like a mother with a child. After a moment, she shook her head. No, he might not have wings, Jialin finally said. Without wings? Then how did it fly into the sky? You must have seen it wrong, right? The second elder said in surprise. At this moment, Jialin didn't know if she had seen it wrong, but she just felt that she had not seen it wrong. The sound of fighting 5 kilometers away gradually became deeper at this time. Not long after, it disappeared directly. On the high ground over there, the two former killers were looking at the distant woods. They could only see a large cloud of smoke rising from the stock. The flames were still burning, and the burning smell was transmitted to 5 kilometers away. Here, the heat is uncomfortable. What on earth is it? Is it something fighting the metal monster? The bearded man asked solemnly and doubtfully. It's here, the young man wearing glasses beside him suddenly shouted. Sure enough, just as they were watching, in the calmed battlefield over there, an extremely huge figure suddenly let out a low roar. The huge body soared into the sky. What a big monster! The people in the village here seemed to be stagnant for a moment, screaming in horror. That's right, the monster flying in the battlefield 5 kilometers away was indeed a huge monster. This monster has a body of about 20 meters, but it does not have wings that can fly, but it still flies. His body is a strange light green color as a whole, and he is wearing neat black armor, which looks full of a wonderful sense of technology. The huge size and the fact that it was bathed in flames but didn't seem to care at all showed that this monster was definitely not a good person. Get away. No matter what he is, it's best not to let him see it. The moment he saw this monster, the young man with glasses, Xiaoao, extinguished the last hope in his heart and hurriedly yelled. Only then did the humans react and hurriedly fled in all directions. Some people were hiding in the ruins, and some were running towards the grass. It wasn't that they didn't believe in the guns in their hands, but the monster's huge size and strange ability to fly without wings made them know that this was a monster that might be the same as the terrifying giant mosquito 10 years ago. Similar powerful individuals, firearms may have no effect on them at all. Haha, I wiped out another group of no less than 100 mining machines and pushed the ground 50 kilometers. The assassin will definitely praise me. The monster flying in the sky is one of the members of Earth City, and among the monsters that came to Earth, one of the two strongest men at the peak of the heaven level. At this time, he was quite satisfied with his advancement speed. Although he was slightly surprised by so many mining machines walking around on the ground, he still didn't care too much. After all, as a powerful peak-level sky-level machine, there is no need to fear the simple red light attack of the metal monster. Hey, there are so many indigenous creatures down there? Should you go down and ask them where the most mining machines are nearby? This monster flew very fast, and in an instant it was over the dilapidated village 5 kilometers away. He was about to land, but then he thought about it and felt that he didn't understand the language, so he gave up the idea. After all, I am a native. I can't communicate at all. I don't know why the assassin cares so much about these natives. However, your meaning is naturally not something that a being like me can guess. I just need to follow your request. The behemoth didn't even stop and sailed across the ruins. What a danger! Everyone below thought that their poor concealment could avoid the monster's detection. At this time, everyone came out of the bunker, all of them were terrified. What's going on? A monster has appeared on the earth again? And it's such a huge monster. Seeing as it can fly without wings, it's not a creature we can understand at all. Could it be another alien? It seems that this Earth is going to change again. I just don't know whether it will be a good change or a bad change for us people on Earth. Alas. Looking at the huge figure quickly leaving in the sky, the young man wearing glasses and the bearded man looked at each other and shook their heads helplessly. Find the bookstore. In the past, the Earth was still an Earth where so-called killers like them could dominate. But now, let alone existences like them, even the best masters in the world at that time would probably only die under the attack of metal monsters. As for the monster that suddenly appeared, it was even more unfathomable. Perhaps it was not much different from the big mosquito from before. Forget it. We just need to protect our 3/3 of an acre of land. Don't let down Lord Kongwen's trust. The bearded man looked behind him. After seeing that the Geo family was not too panicked, he shook his hand. Make a fist. Thank you, the young man wearing glasses thanked him gratefully. Why do you want to thank me? I am their son-in-law, so naturally I want to thank you. Asshole. If I hadn't been a little older, how could I have taken advantage of you? Humph. All radio listeners, an urgent message. An urgent message is being broadcast now. According to reliable information, guerrillas witnessed today that the closest war partners of our people on Earth, the race that has been of great help to people on Earth, the giant Mosquito clan, reappeared this morning. This news has not yet been officially verified, but our station has invited a special war critic, Mr. Lin, to analyze and discuss the reappearance of the giant mosquito and its possible impact. Within an hour of the big mosquito appearing, the news of his appearance spread like snowflakes in all directions across the Earth. The news one after another is like an exciting signal, giving the Earth a different atmosphere 10 years later. The giant mosquito reappears. Is it really a giant mosquito? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 498. Almost as soon as the news was sent out, the entire Earth was once again plunged into a giant mosquito craze. Dad, what is a giant mosquito? You are still young, so you may not have heard of the legend of giant mosquitoes. They are our closest and best friends on Earth. They have saved the Earth in the past. Come on, kid, here is a picture of giant mosquitoes. Dad left it for 10 years, I have always regarded him as a lifesaver. Now let me show you. The giant mosquito actually appears again? Oh my God, the Earth is about to change. However, this news does not describe the appearance and current situation of the giant mosquito. It is better not to be a mere charlatan. Regarding the reappearance of the giant mosquito, the entire Earth is extremely concerned. Even some countries or forces that have had a gap with the giant mosquito are extremely interested in the information about the appearance of the giant mosquito. But having said that, these countries or forces are actually completely different from before. After all, the entire Earth now seems to have undergone earth-shaking changes. The so-called national units have almost disappeared, and instead they have some forces based on combat troops. The so-called country has almost disappeared in 10 years. If the big mosquitoes appeared a little later, they might have disappeared completely, even if they existed in name only. But even any newly emerging force cannot ignore the news of the giant mosquito. Each one of them inquired about the source of this news, because now all aspects of the Earth are not as flexible as before, so that the military and major forces have less control over the news. It's China again. What's going on? These giant mosquitoes have always appeared in China. Except for a few times, almost all of their activities are in China. One by one, the heads of power from other countries started to appear. They all have a hint of dissatisfaction with the location where the giant mosquito appears. Regardless of the changes on the Earth, Let's just talk about the central figure in this matter, which is the Big Mosquito. At this time, Big Mosquito was constantly debugging the spaceship he owned with several of the technicians he had brought. In fact, this spacecraft was a signal base for the Asta people in the orbit of Neptune, but after being captured by Jiayan, it became a half-sized flying vehicle. It's such a primitive aircraft, it's simply not suitable for flying. Is this primitive aircraft really capable of flying half the galaxy? It would be too difficult to modify it. The two technicians were standing in the aircraft at this time, looking at the operation screen with some frustration. It is difficult for a clever woman to make a meal without rice, which is how to describe the current situation. As technical staff of Earth City, although they can be called scientific research enthusiasts, they are not real scientists after all. Creatures with this kind of knowledge can only reach the level of enthusiasts in most civilizations. It is simply a fantasy for them to modify an aircraft. Okay. I know you can't modify the aircraft. But if I give you some artillery fire, can I install it on it? Jiayan is suspended in outer space. His body is too big now, and it is difficult for the aircraft to carry his body, so he simply flies in space. Sir, it depends on the specifications and model of the artillery fire. We can't guarantee it. The two guys, who were not scientists, upheld the pragmatism of scientific researchers and did not speak out arrogantly. Jiayan was silent for a moment, but didn't say much. At present, he arranged for these creatures to be studied in the aircraft and came up with ideas for improvement. He himself is leaning over, coming towards the bottom of the Earth. The Earth is still this Earth. White clouds are floating above the Earth. In some places, the sky is clear and cloudless, while in other places, it is covered by dark clouds and strong winds and showers. However, the image of the Earth's surface is obviously greener. The ocean is also bluer. In 10 years, the Earth has changed so much. Jiayan had never thought before that when he went to the Shoals galaxy, nearly 10 years would have passed directly here on Earth. Although he spent more than a year in the Shoals galaxy, the really good time was during the gravitational wave journey. Probably this time it took the longest time. Daphne once said that this time the startup is to use the safest and most secure way to start the gravitational wave system, so it will take far longer than before. Jiayan admires Oluo, who developed this system and theory before. This guy developed this system on his own in a remote place like the Earth. Although it may have taken that guy hundreds of years, it cannot be denied that this guy may be a genius among the Asta people. It's a pity that he was killed by Dafuni before he saw the success of the system. But we have his theory and design drawings, and with the experience of this launch, we may be more secure next time. And it seems that I am the only one who can travel through gravitational waves. So this advantage maybe it will be a big killer for me in the future. There was something shining in Jia Yanfu's eyes. However, he quickly diverted his attention away from the gravitational wave system. He was already impatient. That's finding family. Jia Yan went in the direction in his memory. Although nearly 10 years have passed on Earth, for Jia Yan, it was just a memory from more than a year ago, so he remembers it very clearly. The Shanghai Stock Exchange should be over there. After looking in the direction, Jia Yan flew forward. There are ruins everywhere on the ground. While Jia Yan fell from the sky, he looked at the apocalyptic scene on the ground. In some places that were obviously large towns, only huge cities collapsed everywhere. Green trees surrounded the entire city, making these places full of green. The population has become sparse, let alone villages, and some big cities have become ghost towns. Jia Yan didn't even see many traces of humans. This scene couldn't help but make the Mosquito more worried about the safety of his family. The scenery of the Earth seems to have a familiar look. Jia Yan has descended to only about 20,000 meters above the ground. For people on Earth, this place may be at an extremely high altitude, but for Jia Yan today, it is already a lower area from the ground. Due to the extremely high altitude, he could see the Shanghai market in the distance, and there was still a vague appearance of a big city. It seems that Shanghai still has a certain urban scale, but I am not going there now, but, here. Through the huge landmark of Shanghai, Jia Yan recognized the small village where his parents and little sister were. That place was where he took his parents and little sister. It was impossible to forget. Landing from a distance, Jia Yanfu's eyes showed a hint of nervousness and desire as a wanderer returning home. The scene on the entire ground has changed dramatically, mainly because the green vegetation coverage has become brighter. Looking down from a high altitude, the village that used to be somewhat developed has become a green area, but there are still some obvious architectural traces in a small area in the center. At this time, there were curls of smoke from cooking fires flying up from there. More than a dozen children, aged between 3 and 14, were running and laughing on the ground. There is no electricity and no high-tech products, but no matter what the environment is, children can always find happiness for themselves. Jia Yan, who is high in the sky, has an even more excited expression in his eyes. The children playing on the ground were all laughing. They were playing the game of eagle catching chicken. This game is the most popular among the children in the neighborhood because it does not require much equipment to play. Suddenly, each of these children felt that the ground they were on was covered by a shadow that suddenly appeared. They all looked up and watched. "Ah!" the oldest child shouted loudly. The other children also shouted loudly, and several 3- and 4-year-olds even burst into tears on the spot. "What's wrong?" Some adults hurriedly ran out of the simple house. They were all very strange. You must know that although these children have a strong interest in playing, they are not easy to cry. Not all wild children in the mountains are like this. What? But when these adults looked in the direction pointed by the children, their eyes finally widened. "Ah!" a young daughter-in-law also screamed in surprise and panic. What happened? Finally, men pointed weapons and rushed out of the houses or buildings. What surprised these men the most was that the ones who shouted were children and women. On the contrary, the men who were on guard duty did not make any alarm sounds. You must know that although it looks like a primitive village, they still have walkie-talkies and alarm loudspeakers. Each of these men was so surprised that they raised their heads to look. This. When they also raised their heads and saw the visiting guests just over 100 meters high in the sky. Everyone was equally shocked. But they didn't scream in fear like those children and women. Because each of these men has a little understanding of the same kind of visitor. Some of them have even had conversations with same kind of this visitor before. They even knew that this visitor had taken the world by storm long ago. But they often didn't expect that this powerful monster would come to visit so quickly. Big Mosquito. Looking at the monster above his head, Beard's mouth felt dry. At this moment, he felt that the harvest of more than 10 years of hard work might be about to come. Sure enough, what appeared in the sky above this small village was a huge monster. This monster has a dark body and long mouth parts, and looks extremely ferocious. Although it is huge and unparalleled and different from any previous individual, its biggest feature remains unchanged. Obviously, he is the super monster that once dominated the Earth for a while and even caused the entire army of metal monsters and the entire war on the Earth to lose momentum, the giant mosquito monster. When he saw this familiar figure, Beard felt his head buzzing, and his emotions were intertwined for a moment. Maybe everything is just a promise. Maybe the beginning of everything is just to get material rewards or status rewards. But what happened next, he did not deny. He already had a feeling of good friends with the Geo family. Even if the so-called senior Changwen no longer appeared, he would always uphold his promise and always protect this family. Go down. But if you can have a reward, or an affirmation, then of course it is the best thing. Now this guy who just a moment ago was on the radio, and the so-called new visitors from the giant mosquito clan kept appearing, causing the entire human race on the Earth to spread the news, suddenly appeared in front of him. How could this not make his mouth dry? What a surprise! Yes, there are still radios in this village. Just now, they all heard about a new giant mosquito, which may even be a more powerful individual than the previous ones. After nearly 10 years, after a while, he returned to Earth again. They had just heard the news, and before they had time to be surprised or happy, the noise caused by the sight of giant mosquitoes outside the door had already reached their ears. The bearded man's surprise was not over yet. Big mosquito! A shout full of surprise came from behind him. At the same time, Jia Yan in the sky looked at the beard and was about to ask something, but he stopped in an instant. He forced himself not to get too excited and looked behind his beard. I saw a woman there. Her appearance still hadn't changed much, but she seemed much more mature. At this time, her clothes were a little old, but she was still meticulously cared for, and she shouted in surprise at him. With the appearance of this woman, the two figures behind him who almost made his body tremble slowly walked out of the door of the best house and walked towards the outside world. Jia's father still looks like an honest man, while Jia's mother's hair is half gray. In 10 years, the second elder looks even older. Jia Yan felt like his blood was boiling. He wanted to scream, but no sound came out. He wanted to hug his family, but because of his huge body, doing so would hurt them. Jia Yan didn't know how to vent his emotions at all. He could only look at the figures of his two elders in the sky and the face of his sister who kept shouting something into the sky, unable to react. When he was in the Shoals galaxy, Jia Yan had thought about the scenery of returning to Earth again and again. He thought about the scenario where he might save his family again when they were in crisis, and also thought about the possibility that all his family members would die. I also thought that I might have to expend countless energy to find them. But now it's such a normal meeting. His family is still in the same old place, and it seems that they have been waiting for him here. Jia Yan didn't know what to do. Big Mosquito, is that you? You speak. Jia Lin shouted loudly, but she didn't realize that tears were streaming down her face. In her past life, this woman, who was as strong as Jia Yan, had many bad memories, but she always had a firm belief that the big mosquito that had helped her family before would definitely appear again. And treat them as their own family, and take good care of them again. Call her powerful or useless, but that's how she believed and used this as the motivation to live and survive. Because she felt that the big mosquito had always given her the feeling like family. Even when Big Mosquito saved the ignorant girl again and again, she had a trance feeling that the other person seemed to be her dead brother, Jia Yan. For the past 10 years, she had kept this idea buried in her heart, but after nearly 10 years, Jia Lin finally burst out this emotion when she saw the big mosquito again. Suddenly seeing Jia Lin crying, Jia Yan in the air was even more at a loss. He didn't know that this was a younger sister acting coquettishly towards her older brother. Just when both parties were a little embarrassed, a man wearing glasses walked up to Jia Lin and gently hugged her shoulders. Mom. The little baby girl in his arms stretched out her chubby little hands and asked her mother to hold her. Huh. Suddenly, Jia Yan in the sky paused. If you heard me correctly, this cute little baby girl called Mom. Impossible. My little sister, the little girl who knew how to act coquettishly with me before but was still ignorant, already has a child. And it looks like it's the child she had with the man wearing glasses. No, it's his grandmother's. This guy is the killer wearing glasses. Boom 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 boom. Everyone in the small village felt a strong wind blowing from the sky. The huge giant mosquito monster moved, and it didn't move in a friendly manner, but with a hint of anger. I asked you to help take care of the Geo family, and this is how you take care of it. Amidst the explosion, a man's deep voice sounded familiar but feared to everyone in the village. It seemed like thunder was rolling down that day, roaring towards the bottom. Jia Yan didn't expect that the first words he said when he saw his family would be these words. but it opened up the situation, and directly revealed his identity as the previous giant mosquito. As for whether the people on Earth know that he is a monster whose growth ability far exceeds the expectations of people on Earth, Jia Yan no longer cares about this. So even if it were revealed that the giant mosquito clan that people on Earth had always known were all him, it didn't matter. According to Jia Yan's current strength, the armed capabilities of the people on Earth have no impact on him at all. Even if all the atomic bombs and hydrogen bombs in the world are thrown at him, Jia Yan may not be afraid. Not to mention whether the blue defense can withstand it, but the flying speed of those nuclear weapons thrown may not be half as fast as his flying speed, so it is impossible to hurt him. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 499. The deadlock has been broken. Not long after, the Geo family and the two killers met the mosquito alone. Although they met alone, it was actually just Jia Yan who flew down and separated the others from behind, so that the sound could not be transmitted. His dark body reached a terrifying 30 meters. Compared to him on Earth, he was simply not on the same level, hovering on the ground like a hill. Daddy, Mommy. The little baby girl was swaying on the ground. She jumped to Jia Lin's feet, and then to the feet of the bespectacled killer, making a sweet and childish voice. But the more this happened, the more Jia Yan looked at the bespectacled killer with murderous intent. Well, listen to me, too many things have happened in these years. Xiaolin has also reached the age of talking about marriage, so. The bespectacled killer scratched his scalp in embarrassment. So you married her? This is what you call taking care of, Jia Yan's voice echoed in the air, causing the leaves to rustle. Fortunately, he also knew how to protect everyone, and the impact of the sound waves did not injure his family and villagers. Mom, I'm scared, the little baby girl screamed and rushed towards Jia Lin, about to cry. Jia Yan looked at his niece and her cute expression, and a kind of joy emerged lightly, but when he thought of the child's father, he felt a little angry. In fact, if you calm down and think about it, this is also a normal thing. It has been nearly 10 years since Jia Yan left. The earth has become like this, and my little sister is old enough to talk about marriage. And there are really not many choices. Alas, thinking of this, Jia Yan shook his head helplessly. Okay, I don't blame you anymore. It's been hard work protecting them for so many years, Jia Yan said lightly. Haha. After working hard for so many years, it seemed that he had just received a confirmation at this moment. The beard smiled softly, and then he only felt that there were vague traces of water emerging from his eyes. How many 10 years can a person have? If it weren't for the Geo family, they would have been able to find a better life with their abilities, but for the promise they made back then, they were still willing to spend the past 10 years. Now that the moment has finally arrived, it may be time to take off the burden. Jia Yan talked with the two killers, and then turned his huge head in the direction of his family. He looked at the family he was just looking down at with his head raised, the memories of the past at this time, the memories of when he was a human being, the kindness of his parents in raising him, the love between brother and sister who grew up together. All come out? Thinking of this, Jia Yan felt that if he had tear glands, he would definitely cry. But he couldn't cry, he just looked at his family. Come. Kikai, call Uncle Mosquito suddenly. Jia Lin, who had never been afraid of Jia Yan, raised her daughter in her arms and pointed at Jia Yan and said to her daughter. Jia Yan looked over and saw that the little girl was very similar to her mother, with a cute apple face. Seeing Jia Yan at this time, she seemed to vaguely understand that this huge monster had no ill intentions, so the watery big monster with his eyes wide open, he looked at Jia Yan without any fear at all. Call me uncle. Jia Yan's heart moved and he said quickly. Jia Lin below was stunned for a moment, and then she started teaching her daughter like this. Chirp, chirp. Apparently Kikai learned things very quickly. It didn't take long before she let out a childish cry. Although the accent is not that standard, it is enough to make Jia Yan's heart melt. This child will be named Jia from now on. The bespectacled killer who had been left aside by Jia Yan suddenly heard Big Mosquito's words. He was stunned and wanted to say something, but the beard next to him pulled him. After the man who was supposed to be the head of the family looked at the huge thing covering the sky above him, he immediately curled his lips and did not dare to speak. Jia Yan knew that his parents were actually quite conservative elders and had always wanted to continue the family lineage, but as their son, he was already dead. It is impossible to pass on the incense to parents in this life, but by doing this now, it can be regarded as passing on the family to the next generation. Sure enough, when Jia's father and Jia's mother heard what Big Mosquito said, although they were extremely surprised, there was still joy in their eyes. Although she is a girl, it is not bad. Each of these people looked a little strange at this time. After all, the Mosquito asked the child to change her name to Uncle, and also asked her to take her mother's surname. Even though the Mosquito had a very weird attitude towards the Jia family before, what do you think if you do this? How strange. Everyone knew there must be some reason for this, but they couldn't ask at this time. After all, they were not familiar with the Big Mosquito. Even this Mosquito seemed to be unable to speak before. Real communication, but only for a short period of time. Okay, I finally feel relieved about the family matter no matter what others thought. Jia Yan finally let go of the worry and excitement in his heart at this moment. Maybe the Jia family members who are involved don't know how many things he, the Big Mosquito, has done for them. Many times, he has even fought tooth and nail for them more than once. But now, what's the point of saying this? Jia Yan knew that even at this time, it was not impossible for him to tell him that he was Jia Yan. After all, people on Earth can't do anything to him, and the threat from aliens is still far away, so even speaking out is not necessarily a bad thing. But Jia Yan doesn't want to do that. Because not only may the parents not be able to accept it, but it may also damage the relationship between everyone. Just keep things as they are, right? Chirp chirp, chirp chirp. Kikai staggered to the feet of Big Mosquito. Behind him, the bespectacled killer and Jia's father and mother seemed a little nervous. Only the younger sister Jia Lin seemed to be very relieved to let her come to the Big Mosquito. Jia Yan smiled heartily. In any case, he has become an uncle, and isn't it the same whether he tells the truth or not? Kikai's small figure was about to touch the sharp edge of the giant mosquito's front feet. You must know that even though Jia Yan's body is huge and his front feet are extremely heavy, in fact, the front feet are still extremely sharp and can easily cut even a piece of paper. So the faces of everyone in the Jia family changed. But before that, Kikai's body floated slightly. Kikai, be good. Jia Yan tried his best to make a soft voice. This was when he used the power of his brain waves to lift up the little baby girl. The little baby girl was floating in the air, looking around. It seemed that Jia Lin's boldness had been passed down to her. When she saw the rising height, not only was she not frightened, she even giggled. Jia Yan manipulated the power of brain waves to tease Kikai. It seems that he really treats the Jia family very differently. The bearded man stood on the ground, looking at the giant mosquito above that was so huge that it could be compared to a house. At this time, he was teasing a little human girl, with an extremely weird look on his face. The gathering in the small village did not affect the general trend of the entire Earth. When the news about the return of the giant mosquito had not been fully digested by the people on Earth, another piece of news began to spread throughout the Earth. This is a piece of breaking news that rivals or even surpasses the return of the giant mosquito. A group of powerful monsters of unknown origin, starting from a certain area of China, are attacking the metal monster army in all directions in the entire area. This news was like an incredible shockwave. Even faster than the news of the return of giant mosquitoes to the Earth, it spread to all areas where people on Earth are. After all, the news of the arrival of the giant mosquitoes is just a rumor. Even if it is true, it is not certain whether the giant mosquito family will still have the same attitude towards the Earthlings after 10 years. Therefore, one by one the Earthlings, or even more concerned about these powerful monsters that suddenly appeared. But when they knew that these monsters still appeared in China, all the foreigners started to curse. God knows what is so good about the Huaxia kingdom. Even if giant mosquitoes always appear there, these monsters with unknown origins are also fighting in that country. Don't all these monsters know that the Huaxia kingdom only occupies a few dozen points of the entire earth? Is it just one area? However, some people began to wonder whether these monsters were related to giant mosquitoes. After all, the latest huge giant mosquito appeared in China. The places where these monsters appeared basically overlapped with the place where the giant mosquito appeared. But none of the guesses came to fruition. Neither the giant mosquitoes nor those powerful monsters actively communicated with humans. Boom boom boom. An extremely huge body plunged down from the sky. After the violent explosion, a terrifying explosion crater appeared on the ground. Among the ruins of the ruins, a large piece of metal monsters, like broken tofu dregs, were spread all over the ground. Here's another squad of destroyed metal monsters. The huge monster felt a little breathless at this time. The oxygen on this planet doesn't seem to be suitable for my respiratory organs. I've only been fighting for a while, and I feel a little uncomfortable. No, 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 how can I be noticed by adults like this? The huge monster made a slight movement in the air, and his body turned into a blurry shadow, quickly running through the air. As monsters in the Earth City, especially those who were selected to become the subordinates of Lord Assassin for this special mission, each of these alien creatures has great desire for the future. Especially after personally experiencing the giant mosquito passing through the extremely powerful gravitational wave area, their admiration for the giant mosquito has simply reached its peak. This monster doesn't understand Earth's language, otherwise, he might have heard the word Earth from the passing Earthlings. That way, you will definitely know that the Earth City force to which you belong must have some connection with this planet. But they didn't have the heart to think so much at this time. Every powerful monster is fighting against metal monsters. As for the people on Earth, everyone seemed to have been given a shot of blood. First the first sighting report appeared, then the second, and the third. News of powerful monsters defeating countless metal monsters were reported to the headquarters of various forces and the media through various channels like snowflakes. There. And all the people on Earth who heard this news through the radio were happy at first, and then excited later. Now, the people on Earth are completely sure that these monsters are really here to destroy the metal monsters. What's even more exciting is that they didn't harm any of the Earthlings they met. This piece of news is almost as important as the destruction of metal monsters by these monsters, because this way you can be sure that the monsters will not harm the people of the Earth. Even if they don't come here specifically to help, they are still a friendly group. The entire Earth began to be filled with ecstatic gestures. People gathered in front of the radio, listening to the host constantly reporting on the progress of the powerful monsters. There were also some so-called scholars who appeared one by one at this time and continued to express their speculations on the radio. I think these monsters are probably helpers invited by the giant mosquito clan. You know, throughout the 10 years of history, the Earth has been able to overcome difficulties with the help of the giant mosquito clan. Although they disappeared for 10 years, there were so many powerful monsters attacking the metal monsters as soon as they appeared, and only the giant mosquito family would help us people on Earth like this. So I think it must be the giant mosquitoes helping us. What are you talking about? The giant mosquito clan may have helped the Earth a lot in the past, but that is irrelevant. What weapons are you talking about? Aren't those all developed by us on Earth ourselves? There are still 10 years left. How many times has this so-called giant mosquito clan appeared during this time? Apparently they have all disappeared. It was us on Earth who sustained it alone for 10 years. You're just talking nonsense. If the giant mosquito hadn't given us those alien technological items, would we have been able to develop new weapons? If it hadn't been for the largest giant mosquito 9 years ago, which destroyed a 1,000-meter metal monster building in Australia, killing countless metal monsters at the same time, can we survive until now? And you said these monsters are not the partners invited by Giant Mosquito. Just wait and see. Master Giant Mosquito will let you see how narrow your vision is. The two experts who were confronting each other on the radio did not hide their Giant Mosquito black nature at all, while the other was obviously a Giant Mosquito brain-dead fan. The two of them were talking trash back and forth on the radio show, and it was so exciting. However, compared to 10 years ago, the reputation of the giant mosquito family has indeed changed on the entire Earth. Because he endured great tragedy, even countless people died and lost his family. Therefore, after going through many ups and downs in the past 10 years, the people on Earth have made great changes towards the giant mosquito clan that many people did not like to see before. There are even some sects that worship and believe in the giant mosquito god. They have appeared as early as 10 years ago. They first appeared on the internet, and then the giant mosquitoes disappeared. As a result, these characters not only did not disappear, but also disappeared from the gradually destroyed network environment. Come to reality. After 10 years of development, the number of people on Earth who worship the giant mosquito clan has increased by an unknown amount. Now that they heard the news about the emergence of giant mosquitoes, almost all of these people burst into tears. You know, why do they admire the giant mosquito clan day and night? Just for this extremely powerful race to appear again and save the world. After all, the advancement speed of a few strong men is limited. A strong man from Earth City could not destroy many metal monster armies. It was impossible for them to maintain their physical strength for a long time like Jia Yan. Therefore, after half a day of extremely fast advancement, Earth City was almost completely destroyed in several aspects. The strong ones all stopped moving. They need rest. The strongest one has advanced 500 kilometers. The weakest one has advanced more than 100 kilometers, covering almost all areas around Shanghai. Very good. You have done enough, let's all rest. Jia Yan gave a faint command to stop through the communicator. He didn't really want his men to deal with all the metal monsters at once, but he just wanted to create a safer environment around Shanghai City as soon as possible. What happens after that, come back slowly. He still remembered that the metal monsters still had those extremely powerful red light buildings. And the metal monsters are not my first priority. Now, it is easy for me to destroy them all. But before that, I have other things to do. Thinking of this, Jia Yan looked at the Jia family who were still accompanying him and the two killers. Okay, I'm about to leave. You are absolutely safe here. I will send a subordinate to protect you later. Don't worry, the chaotic state of the Earth will end soon. Jia Yan gently put down Xiao Kakai, who was still teasing in front of him, wrapped in the power of brainwaves, making her fly into the arms of her little sister Jia Lin. This child's future will definitely not be in this kind of environment. I promise. The huge body of the big mosquito gradually floated up. He did not spread his wings and fly high, but used the power of brainwaves to float gently to about 200 meters above the ground, and then moved his wings. Shot away instantly. The direction he left was exactly where Shanghai was. Now that my family has seen it, what happens next on Earth is about to unfold. Wow wow wow, chirp. Chirp. 360 Search Meow by GE, Rebirth of the Star Sky Giant Mosquito update quickly. Jia Lin looked at her daughter, who had become familiar with the big mosquito in a very short time, and couldn't help crying when she saw the big mosquito leaving, and couldn't help but become stunned. The rest of the people also had the same expression. Their previous experiences still felt like a dream to them. the big mosquito is really back. And he also said that the Earth will never be like this in the future. The two killers looked at each other, and both saw a look of surprise in each other's eyes. It seems that the Earth is really going to change a lot because of the return of the giant mosquito. Boom boom boom. Before any of them could react from the shock, an equally huge monster, whose silhouette covered the entire sky, came quietly. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 500. This monster has two heads, each with 4 pairs of eyes. It is looking down, its eyes are cold and very penetrating. Ah! The people in the village were completely shocked. After all, this is not a giant mosquito monster. No one knows whether he has any malicious intentions. However, this two-headed monster just looked at the village faintly, and then landed on the ground near the village without any movement. Maybe he is what Big Mosquito said to protect our men, right? After discovering the unusual behavior of this monster, the man wearing glasses couldn't help but say this after being stunned for a moment. Sure enough, others noticed something unusual about this two-headed monster. They didn't expect that the subordinate that Big Mosquito was talking about would be such a monster. That's right. This monster is one of Jia Yan's men who was ordered to protect the village. Although it is only at the early stage of heaven level, on today's Earth, except for Jia Yan's men, it is basically invincible. With his protection, Jia Yan is reassured about the safety of his family. After all, they have already arrived on Earth, and he doesn't want any accidents to happen to his family at the last moment under his nose. Whirring. The surrounding air smelled so good, a familiar and refreshing smell that made Jia Yan enjoy it extremely. Everything on the earth seemed to make him full of vitality. Jia Yan didn't know if it was an illusion or something, but he was always 100 times more comfortable in his hometown than on the gray-yellow star. He is extremely fast, flying at more than 30 times the speed of sound. At this speed, it can be said that listing on the Shanghai Stock Exchange is here in a blink of an eye. Shanghai City is well protected, at least most of the areas are still intact. Jia Yan looked at the city below and felt a trance, because there are actually many places in the city below that were built 10 years ago. Jia Yan vaguely saw many familiar buildings. The landmark building in Shanghai, the Oriental Tower, is still standing proudly. There is also Jia Yan's former university. Although it seems to have become a residential area now, most of the buildings still exist. Even the small building where little sister and the others lived before still exists. Jia Yan's eyes trembled slightly, and he set his sights on the home of the girl who once fascinated him. However, that large area seemed to have experienced a fierce battle and was now turned into a pile of ruins. Even the Yu family, the former great enemy, was completely wiped out because it was located in the suburbs, leaving only a large green forest-like relic. Alas! Jia Yan sighed softly in his heart. He knew that time had worn away everything. If he hadn't returned to this place full of memories, he might have forgotten the girl he thought about day and night. Ding Liman, that's all. Jia Yan turned his head and stopped looking over there. No matter whether this woman hidden deep in my heart is alive or dead, now is the time to completely erase her from my heart. There are also familiar names such as Yu Yuan and the Yu family. Even though they still exist today, Jia Yan's future will no longer have anything to do with them. Today's Shanghai Stock Exchange is still an important military and political center of China. However, the rules of the game between forces have changed, so in the small area of Shanghai City, there are 3 legions in various names. They are each other's horns and support each other, but they are also afraid of each other. This is how human beings are. Even at the moment of life and death, there will be constant intrigues and mutual strife. Fortunately, because of the huge threat of metal monsters, at least on the surface, these 3 major forces have not yet launched a head-on battle. But in terms of relationships and equipment, they have always been competing with each other. The Shanghai Central Army is such a group army organization. They were born out of the previous regular army. Even now, they are still ordered by the Chinese government to regard the other two legions as treasonous enemies. Their equipment is also the best, but because the other two legions have large personnel, if the Central Army wants to take action, they will unite. Even if the Central Army wins, they will definitely pay a heavy price. So now, the Central Army still reluctantly, there was a superficial peace with the other two legions. The Central Army's high-tech equipment is extremely powerful. Not only are they the same force that obtained the advanced machinery of the giant Mosquito clan before, but their advanced radar system alone is several times more powerful than the other two group armies. And today is also the time for these radars to make a contribution. Report, report. There is something strange on the radar. A staff member of the monitoring station sent a report to the central government through the communication equipment in a panic. You know, the radar station has not been of much use since the start of the Metal War, so when some situations occur, these Legion staff appear to be panicked. But the panic these staff members felt today was obviously more surprising than when they encountered several dangerous situations before. But when the senior military officials heard the other party's report, they were also not calm. Giant Mosquito. The giant Mosquito is coming, the reporting staff roared. What? Where is he? The senior military officials obviously had better psychological quality than the staff, and they were still able to ask the key points at this time. He is too fast. The speed exceeds 30,000 kilometers per hour. That is 30 times faster than the speed of sound. He has already reached Shanghai, the staff member screamed with an expression on his face as if he had seen a ghost. You know, that's 30 times the speed of sound. 30 times the speed of sound is an incredible speed for all aircraft on the Earth. Even if this radar station can detect objects at this speed, it is because of the size of the opponent's body. If it were smaller, it would be impossible to capture. Apparently, Jia Yan did not use his brainwave power to shield the electromagnetic fluctuations around him this time. He even deliberately made noise, otherwise, just because of the invisible exoskeleton that his body automatically evolved, most detection equipment on the Earth would not be able to detect his movements. This is the greatest kindness that Jia Yan can release. The moment the staff at the radar station issued the warning, the leaders of the Central Army heard a burst of noise from the outside world. They couldn't help but look to the outside world. Everyone gasped. I saw a dark-skinned mosquito that seemed not much different from the huge giant mosquitoes before. It looked like it was just a supergiant mosquito that had been enlarged several times in appearance, hanging in the sky. This terrifying monster stopped directly above the military camp of the Legion. Its extremely terrifying huge body seemed to cover the entire sky with a dark curtain. The earth fell into darkness. This. The soldiers who were practicing below, as well as the non-commissioned officers, were all stunned. The news about the emergence of giant mosquitoes only came within a few hours. Some soldiers still don't know the news about the return of giant mosquitoes. But this did not prevent these soldiers from recognizing the monster appearing above their heads, which was the so-called giant mosquito. You know, the giant mosquito in the past handed over some alien technology machinery to their military camp, and then countless scientists worked together to develop the weapons that turned the tide of the entire war in the past 10 years. This army, which regards giant mosquitoes as its patron saint, hangs pictures of those giant mosquitoes from the past everywhere. Even if every recruit doesn't know who their leader is, they still see the giant mosquito every day. Giant mosquito. How is that possible? Each soldier looked at the monster above his head and screamed in surprise. Although he had been looking forward to the appearance of the giant mosquito, it had been 10 years. People on Earth regard the giant mosquito as a spiritual support, but they never thought that this kind of monster, which they had only seen on posters, suddenly appeared in front of them. Hello. Please come out and meet your leader. Jia Yan was flying in the sky. Although he saw weapon systems being set up on the ground, and there might be some powerful advanced weapons aimed at him, he was not afraid at all. You know, he has fought against the orthodox alien armies of the Grey and Yellow Star. Earthlings' weapons or missiles are not much different from toys to him. The sudden voice of the big mosquito was almost earth-shaking, shaking the whole ground so much that some timid army soldiers even sat down on the ground with their legs weak. The power of the giant mosquito monster has not only become a thing of the past in the past 10 years, but has even become more exaggerated and even somewhat inexplicably mythical due to the emergence of some so-called giant mosquito cults. Now seeing the giant mosquito really looks like a god. Just the sound of his voice makes the earth shake. How could these soldiers not be horrified? Not long after, a large group of high-level officers appeared from their respective office buildings. Jia Yan looked at the group of big shots with indifferent eyes. According to his increasingly powerful memory after rebirth, he could even tell that some of the officers looked familiar. He had obviously seen them when he sent alien machinery 10 years ago. Ben. Dear Mr. Giant Mosquito, hello. The group of officers pushed and shoved each other, but this time they did not call for a low-level soldier to come and talk. Instead, a person who seemed to have a high military rank came out to have a conversation. Jia Yan keenly discovered that 10 years later, the Chinese military emblem was still so eye-catching. Obviously these soldiers did a good job and have protected Shanghai City until now. It was not that Jia Yan had not seen several other military camps, but he thought they were all from the Chinese army, so he did not doubt these things at this time. Of course, for today's big mosquito, the conflicts and intrigues among the people on Earth are nothing to worry about. In the face of absolute power, the big mosquito thinks that they are not worth a damn at all. Even the former enemy of life and death, the so-called metal monster, is nothing more than a joke to today's big mosquito. When he returns to Earth, his only opponents are the two coming civilization exploration ships. Hello, Your Excellency, we have met before. Jia Yan responded calmly to the officer who came out. Are you really the same person from before? The officer suddenly looked shocked when he heard what Big Mosquito said, and blurted out his doubts for a moment. Originally this was a big taboo. After all, for other races, God knows some things are not allowed to be asked, but at this time, the officer still asked. Obviously he was so upset because he was really disturbed. Haha, yes, it's me. Jia Yan laughed softly. For Big Mosquito, the sooner things on Earth are sorted out, the better, so he doesn't mind letting people know that the giant mosquito individual who handed over alien technology to people on Earth is also his business. This way, he can close the distance faster. However, he was not prepared to recognize the giant mosquito before. After all, it was too scary, so it was better to endure it in his heart. There is no benefit in saying it, but it will create additional problems. So it's you. After hearing Big Mosquito's admission, the officers and soldiers below seemed to have relaxed their vigilance. Okay, no more gossip. I am here this time to release an urgent message to you people on Earth. Jia Yan straightened his expression and said this to all the soldiers in the Central Army camp below. At the same time, the cameras kept in the military camp, as well as the remaining high-tech recording equipment, focused their lenses on the giant mosquito. Some people may have predicted that this giant mosquito monster that reached 30 meters in size was about to speak out. The words may be words that will change the fate of the Earth. No. The giant mosquito has already changed the people of the Earth before. And the giant mosquito that appears this time will definitely change the people of the Earth again. The officer who talked to Jia Yan also realized this at this time. His face suddenly flushed, and no fewer than 20 or 30 video equipment were pointed at him from behind. At this moment, the officer knew that he might become a participant in a historical moment, and he suddenly lost his composure. The man's face was flushed and he pretended to be solemn. He coughed slightly and tried to straighten his face. A camera at the rear had an excellent angle at this time and recorded the scene of the Shanghai Central Army soldier holding his head high and talking to a giant mosquito. What the videographer didn't know was that the scene would become an eternal theme scene and would affect generations of people on Earth. "Please tell me," the officer who was talking to Jia Yan said seriously. Jia Yan also discovered the strange behavior of the people on Earth below. After thinking about it, he also knew that his next words might really change the fate of countless people on Earth, and even change the fate of the entire Earth from now on. So he became a little more serious. After thinking about it, Jia Yan decided to create an imaginary giant mosquito clan to make the negotiations between the two parties smoother. So after a faint sparkle in his compound eyes, an idea overflowed from his mind. Afterwards, this idea became words with his rapid brain speed. Jia Yan spoke. "The fate of the people on Earth is bumpy. We, the giant mosquito clan, abide by the code of good neighborliness and friendship among races in the universe, and will wish you to solve the metal monster crisis." The officer below had his pupils widened with an incredible expression. Not only him, but also a large group of soldiers around him had almost the same expression. What did the giant mosquito say? Actually want to help the people on Earth solve the crisis of metal monsters. They have never thought about such a thing before. Even if they trust the giant mosquito clan again, when it comes to solving the metal monster that has threatened the life of the Earth for 10 years, the people on Earth will not believe it no matter what. This is not a question of trust or distrust, but a matter of being threatened for too long, and suddenly a strong man appears. To lightly say that you want to help solve a serious problem is a fantasy for any race. This, Mr. Giant Mosquito, is the help you said true. The officer immediately stopped caring whether there was a video recording behind him. Ask this sentence quickly. Of course, Jia Yan said lightly. After all, the metal monster is no longer mysterious and powerful to him now. However, he didn't wait for any expressions of surprise or confusion on the part of the people below, and then spoke the next words. "The metal monster is just a disease of mustard moss. I have one more piece of information to reveal to you here. This is also the information I really want to reveal to you. That means that in no more than a year, the alien civilizations behind these metal monsters will come to Earth. Their power cannot be compared to these so-called metal monsters. So I propose here that we, the giant mosquito clan, form an alliance with you Earthlings to resist these alien civilizations together." Ah! This. The officer, as if his brain was not functioning properly at this time, was even the saying that giant mosquitoes will help solve the metal monsters has not been digested. Then he heard about the alien civilization behind the metal monsters. His head suddenly seemed to be cramped. He tried hard to keep it up. He kept his composure, but his efforts were not very effective, and he was still captured by the camera. "Okay, I'm just here to suggest that you Earthlings can negotiate quickly. I will help you deal with the metal monster first. Then, I will provide you with detailed agreement content and terms. I hope you Earthlings can be able to think carefully." Jia Yan didn't expect that just by contacting this army, he would be able to completely resolve what he was talking about. He knew how difficult it was for people on Earth to deal with. After all, this was just an army. Beidou's sister-in-law Suomiao #U003EBI/U003 Edge, rebirth of the giant mosquito in the starry sky. There is also the Huaxia kingdom above, and outside the Huaxia kingdom, there are 100 or 200 independent countries like the Huaxia kingdom. Jia Yan feels that it is not a matter of time for so many countries to have a unified voice. "Mr. Giant Mosquito, please slow down." Just when Jia Yan finished delivering his words and was about to get up and fly, the officer behind him finally came back to his senses. He quickly shouted. "Huh?" Jia Yan turned around in surprise. The officer had not expressed any opinions before, but now he suddenly called him, which was a bit strange. I thought the other party was concerned about those alien civilizations that might appear in the future, but unexpectedly, it turned out that this officer was concerned about another issue. Then, Mr. Giant Mosquito, how long do you expect it will take to eliminate the metal monster? Kaanka's lust fairy death wish, depression, but I will see if I can explode in a few days. Thank you for subscribing and book friends, thank you. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 501. /U003C/B/U003E. So that's the problem. Jia Yan smiled lightly. It seemed that the other party still only focused on the present. Even for them, they might not believe that Jia Yan, a monster, could defeat the metal monster. Please search for the most complete view. The fastest updated novel. Although this kind of mining machine has undergone certain combat modifications, it is still a mining machine. From the perspective of Jia Yan, who has fought against real aliens, it is not much different from a joke. How many days? Haha, within 10 days, the metal monster will be destroyed. I hope you people on Earth can discuss it as soon as possible within 10 days. See you in 10 days. After saying this, Jia Yan spread his wings and flew into the sky. That huge body, which was as large as 30 meters, continuously sent shockwaves into the sky that broke the sound barrier. Boom boom boom. After a series of breakthroughs, the 30-meter body actually turned into a small dot in one breath. In almost a few seconds, it was like a rocket that had gone to outer space and disappeared without a trace. Only the officers and soldiers of the Shanghai Central Committee were left on the ground, staring at each other with big eyes and small eyes. 10 days. This giant mosquito actually said that he could solve the metal monster that had troubled the people of the Earth for 10 years and was even the enemy of life and death in 10 days. Is this a joke? But can the giant mosquito clan joke? The faces of a member of the Shanghai Central Army kept changing, but most of them had expressions of disbelief. Quick! Call the Central Committee. No, call the United Nations. Call the Alliance to resist metal monsters. Now we go to the Central Army in Shanghai and we will really become famous. The officer who was talking to Jia Yan suddenly the ground burst into cheerful laughter. He didn't know whether the big mosquito could eliminate the metal monster within 10 days, but what he knew was that when the monster appeared in their military camp again, it talked about the Alliance. This alone is enough to make their deteriorating army once again become the focus of global public opinion. Such an opportunity. How could he not catch it? The Central Army in Shanghai was boiling almost within a moment. And this boiling atmosphere will soon spread to the entire Earth. This is not a special post-autumn day, perhaps in the future, it will be a huge festive festival because of this day. It is the giant mosquito family that appears in person to communicate with humans. It's even a day to issue an alliance-friendly issue. Jia Yan could guess that the Earth was about to boil, but he didn't care too much. Future threats are still imminent. Jia Yan is flying, heading into outer space. In the distant starry sky, stars twinkled. As Jia Yan was marching, he seemed to be confused by the beautiful scenery, and his speed stagnated for a moment. I've returned to Earth, and the first things have begun. But is all this what I want? Jia Yan was a little confused. All this should have been a very happy thing for him, but at this moment, Jia Yan felt that he was not that excited. Half a day has passed since she returned to Earth. Everything she wanted to do has started to progress, and she even met her family. Jia Yan was relieved to know that they were safe, but at the same time, he found that he was not that excited. Haha, people are always greedy, and I am no exception, Jia Yan knew deep in his heart. I still long for more, not like now, where I meet my family once and then separate, but I want to live together like a real family. Especially after meeting his sister's daughter, Jia Yan found that he had some inexplicable feelings. Oh. That's all. Don't think about this. The huge threat coming to the Earth is right in front of you. Even the year I mentioned before is just a guess. It is possible for the exploration ships of two civilizations to arrive at any time. Jia Yan forced himself not to think so much. He was alone, like an ancient monster that could control the breeze, flying towards the sky. The hugeness is still so huge, but in this hugeness, there is a hint of loneliness. Being strong in combat does not mean that you are strong in heart. A creature with intelligence may spend its whole life in various inner emotions, and Jia Yan, the extremely powerful Mosquito, may the same be true, right? Maybe life full of all kinds of troubles and pain is the real life? Jia Yan can't be sure if this is the case. In short, he can only live strong in the trouble. Because no matter alien or Earth, no matter strong or weak, maybe any living thing spends its life like this. The body of the giant mosquito was like a huge cannonball rising into the sky, and the electricity shot high into the sky. 100 kilometers away, a spacecraft here is constantly being debugged. It turns out that this is the master control switch of the controller. As expected of an Osto man, the technology from 300 years ago was so terrifying. Here is the gravity controller. Compared with modern ones, the workmanship and materials are much more complicated. The advantage is that it is strong and durable, but it has a lot of disadvantages. At least it is not as efficient as the current gravity controller, and the appearance is too huge. Yes. Need for improvement. One by one, elite scientific researchers from Earth City were constantly groping for everything about the equipment in the aircraft. Jia Yan had already handed over the master controller of the aircraft to them before. At this time, these creatures can control the aircraft to leave the Earth and escape to other places through the controller. But they didn't do that. Compared with the other members who are full of dissent, these scientific researchers and enthusiasts are only full of research mentality. Being able to have Jia Yan's research resources is the best reward for them. What's more, these creatures don't think they can survive when they go to other places in the solar system. After all, this is just an aircraft, not a spaceship that can travel in the stars. Just as they continued to analyze the aircraft and conduct some improvement research. An unparalleled body, like an incredible existence that violated the laws of physics, seemed like the electric light came near the aircraft. He is none other than Jia Yan, who left not long ago. Sir. You are back. When a scientific researcher saw him, he quickly lowered his head to show respect. No need to be polite. How is your analysis? Jia Yan knows that the abilities of these alien creatures cannot be measured by the standards of Earth people. In fact, the IQ of aliens, especially those individuals with certain brainwave power, are extremely high, so Jia Yan felt that in such a short time, they should have come to a certain conclusion. In fact, Jia Yan was helpless, because when he came to Earth, he had nothing else to rely on. Apart from this aircraft, he couldn't think of anything else to use as the main force against the exploration ship in the future. That's why we are so focused on the improvement of aircraft. Sir. We have taken a general look at this aircraft and found it to be in pretty good condition. Although it is a relatively old aircraft, it uses some technologies that were considered cutting-edge 300 years ago. If you use your brain carefully, say there may be unexpected results, a scientific researcher. Using his mouth that looks like a turtle's mouth, he speaks like he's asking for credit. Oh. I can get some 2-meter or 5-meter diameter giant cannons next. They may also be built using Osta people's technology. If added, can this aircraft rival a 200-meter class battleship? Jia Yan asked with some surprise after hearing this. The scientific researcher was choked up when he heard Jia Yan's question. Even other scientific researchers looked at Jia Yan one by one. Jia Yan could see from their expressions that each monster had a feeling of doubting whether he even had basic knowledge. Sir, if you add those huge cannons you mentioned, even if these huge cannons are the cannons of battleships. But if you want it to match a battleship, this is still a bit reluctant. The turtle who spoke, the monster with a mouth, mumbling at this moment, said these words hesitantly. Jia Yan nodded. In fact, after seeing the expressions of these scholars, he already understood that he was thinking too much. After all, a space battleship. But it is the main battle item of alien civilization. Not to mention the technology of the Asta people from 300 years ago, his aircraft was not even a very good aircraft at that time. Even if these researchers have powerful transformation technology, they still want to transform it into something comparable to a battleship. If they had this ability, it would be impossible for these researchers to be won over by their Earth city. He has definitely joined the research teams of major civilizations and become a well-known scientist. Jia Yan knew that he was thinking too much. Well, you study it first and give me a rough plan tomorrow. By the way, I will give you some special metals and some special substances. I'm not sure whether they can be used for transformation. But I think it's a good thing. I hope it can promote your transformation. Okay, sir. After seeing several scholars working there well, Jia Yan nodded. In fact, the giant cannons he mentioned all come from the most advanced things on Earth, metal monsters. In the eyes of Jia Yan today, these monsters are no longer formidable opponents, but what they can contribute is not just some metal corpses. Some of the metal materials that make up their bodies can definitely be used, as well as the crystal materials from the cores of these monsters. Jia Yan feels that they may not be ordinary objects. If they can all be used, it should be beneficial to the modification of aircraft. Okay. In the next 10 days, it's time to settle the accounts with those metal monsters. After arranging matters for the scientific researchers, Jia Yan finally had an unusual look in the faintness of his compound eyes. His body parked on the side of the aircraft made a U-turn in space. It seemed to turn into a meteorite and fall towards the ground. What follows is a 10-day battle. The target of the battle will be his opponent since his rebirth. Metal monster. However, in the eyes of him who has reached the starry sky level, today's metal monsters are no longer too powerful an opponent to fight against. Jia Yan is so powerful that he has long been able to ignore these enemies. And after such a long-standing bad relationship, in the next 10 days, it can be regarded as a moment of decision. Jia Yan's body becomes faster. Fierce. Fierce. In the sky, a fireball burning due to friction appeared. Dazzling and bright. Humans below the entire sky can see that this fireball not only does not burn out in the air, but even becomes more and more stubborn in impacting down. Jia Yan was bathed in flames. This frictional temperature was nothing to him. At this time, he just looked down at the approaching ground with a gleaming light in his compound eyes. You guys, have you rested well? Suddenly, a voice appeared in the communicators of those powerful monsters scattered within a few hundred kilometers of Shanghai. Hear this voice. The sleeping monsters stood up from the ground one by one, as if they had heard some imperial edict. Sir, we have almost rested. Although it was impossible for these monsters to reach their peak state in a short period of time, they still stood up, after all, in front of the top leader. They don't want to leave a bad impression. Very good, the next battle. The opponents are all mining machines like before. You don't need to fly, and you don't need to advance so fast. The first priority is to preserve your physical strength and fight a protracted battle. Do you understand? Understood. Among the monsters, some have physical abilities that are not their strong point, and some have a wry smile. But they thought of the so-called enemies they had encountered before, which were just a group of mining machines equipped with attack weapons, and thought of this. Each of these creatures is keeping their spirits up. Facing such an enemy that poses no threat at all, how could they let go of such a good opportunity to claim credit? Jia Yan's body flying downward finally reached the sky above his hometown, Fujian province. This is where he will blow up a whirlwind next. Okay. Let's start. Kill. When the last sentence was finished, the big mosquito was already heading towards a wave of numerous metal monsters, exuding the power of his brainwaves. Boom 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 boom. Metal monsters. Each machine exploded. In front of the Starry Sky class, this so-called mining machine is simply vulnerable. At this time, the people of the Earth have just received the Alliance invitation suggestion from the big mosquito to the people of the Earth. They were all extremely surprised. They were not only surprised by Big Mosquito's declaration of killing metal monsters in 10 days, but also by what he said about the alien civilization behind the metal monsters. Surprised by this, I was caught off guard in every aspect. The giant mosquito that appeared this time came so quickly, and its impact on the Earth was even more violent, unfolding far faster than expected. Only half a day. He not only declared his existence, but also launched his own diplomacy with the people on Earth. Although the report said that this monster was actually the 17-meter giant mosquito that had appeared in the Earth before. But the high-level people on Earth are still hesitant. You must know that the giant mosquito monsters in the past were extremely mysterious and incomprehensible existences. Even if they communicate, none of them are as diplomatic as this one. Isn't this a friendly giant mosquito monster? But a trap. Our country is not in a hurry to express its position. Let's first see what other countries and major forces say. After all, there are still 10 days. During this period, we can also see whether the giant mosquito can really attack the metal monster. After all, 10 days it is absolutely impossible to destroy the metal monster. High-level officials in some countries have made similar remarks. For people on Earth, it is impossible to reach a conclusion so quickly on such a big decision. Even though all countries now are controlled by some centralized groups or armies, for such a big matter, there will be some internal discussions. However, these characters did not expect that the giant mosquito's movements, or mobility, would be so terrifying and so fast. They all thought that if the giant mosquito said the deadline of 10 days, they would have to wait until tomorrow or delay it for a while before doing anything. But I didn't expect that he would take action directly. Sir. Giant. The giant mosquito is starting to attack. The monsters that appeared in those reports are definitely related to giant mosquitoes. They have all started taking action. While the high-level officials of various countries and forces were still noisy during those discussions, they all received the news one by one. Suddenly, the noisy voices and doubtful voices fell silent. What? He's already started. Some countries are extremely far away from China. After all, the Earth now is not the Earth it used to be. In places far away, communications and intelligence are no longer so flexible. So some countries are still wondering. When these countries are still confused, China itself, or those countries that are close to China, everyone started to take a stand. Changing the rudder according to the wind and maximizing one's own interests is the true essence of these countries. Huaxia is the first to express its stance. They express their agreement with the giant mosquito's alliance agreement. What? The instant noodle country also expressed its stance. The curry rice country expresses its support for an alliance with the giant mosquito clan. The Japanese country has also expressed its stance. What is going on? What is the status of the battle between the giant mosquito and the metal monster? These countries that are close to each other must have received some news. The top leaders of each country came to Shiyuan and listened dumbly to the urgent news. They couldn't believe it. Each of these countries, represented by the Huaxia kingdom, rushed to show their favor to the giant mosquito. In the end, why? What's going on with the giant mosquito? These countries that joined first will definitely take the initiative in the future, and their relationship with giant mosquito will definitely be better. After all, they are the first ones to express their stance. It is also equivalent to being the first to show goodwill to the giant mosquito clan. Ah. So that's it, the information from the front has been transmitted, this. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 502. This giant mosquito and his companions are actually so powerful. The metal monster can't be stopped. It's absolutely unstoppable. Hurry, declare your agreement to form an alliance, and we must not fall behind anymore. Hurry and issue a statement. Whether it was the remaining national organizations of the Star-Spangled Banner state or countries such as E-State, they all issued statements of agreement immediately. You know, the difference between declaring first and declaring later is absolutely huge. This is the difference between closeness and distance. People on Earth have not felt such a huge change in the situation for who knows how long. And in the past 10 years, every time there has been a change, there has always been a series of losses. They no longer want to hear more bad news. In the past, there were always news about metal monsters massacring a certain city, or even the entire city being massacred. They had heard too much of similar news and felt too much. But this time, when the big mosquitoes appeared for less than a day, there was good news one after another. First, the giant mosquito appeared, which in itself was huge good news. You know, the reputation of the giant mosquito clan in the past 10 years has not only not decreased because of their disappearance, but has even slightly improved. Because what is needed in the war is a spiritual support, the giant mosquito monster has transformed into this image very well. Even if the giant mosquito will appear again in the future, this is something that no one knows, but most countries, even for giant mosquitoes don't have a good impression, so I use the image of a big mosquito as an excuse to motivate people. So as soon as the news about the appearance of the giant mosquito spread out, the whole earth was boiling. They have experienced too much, and they want a stimulus too much. Even if the stimulus still cannot see any good changes in the future, this kind of stimulus is absolutely needed. Of course, with the emergence of giant mosquitoes, some giant mosquito black also began to appear on various radio stations. After all, some people like it and some people hate it. Professor Lee, take a look, did you see it? The giant mosquito has just issued an invitation to the alliance. Do you still think that the giant mosquito will not help us people on Earth? He said that he can solve the problem of metal within 10 days. Monsters. A voice appeared on the radio. From the trembling tone of the voice, one could tell that the owner of the voice was extremely excited. As a giant mosquito powder, this guest has been maintaining the reputation of giant mosquito. He has been doing this for 10 years. But in the past, he had been ridiculed and questioned. Now I can finally roar. The giant mosquito appeared and really proposed this proposal for the Earthlings alliance that was very likely to change history. He was naturally extremely excited. You like the giant mosquito so much, of course you are excited by whatever the giant mosquito says. I think people who are not my race must have different hearts. Even if the giant mosquito proposes an alliance agreement, it is impossible for them to really contribute. Just wait. Well, not to mention 10 days, even 100 days and 1,000 days, the giant mosquito cannot strangle the metal monster. Besides, are metal monsters so easy to kill? The person who refuted was the so-called giant mosquito. At this time, facing the voices of congratulations, this so-called Professor Lee kept refuting on the radio station, seeming to regard everything about giant mosquito as a conspiracy or show-off. In fact, these positions are not wrong in themselves. After all, Mosquito has not really been of any substantial help to the people on Earth in the past 10 years. But the mistake of these giant mosquitoes is that they deny all the rhetoric of the giant mosquitoes and all their previous contributions to the people of the earth. This approach has earned them countless scoldings, but they have also received support from some strange people. In addition, the radio station needs a variety of sounds to heat up the atmosphere, so these people rely on this to survive. But at this time, even these giant mosquito blacks felt that they had no bottom in their hearts. Professor Lee, how can you say that, huh? Director, what did you say? The giant mosquito is already attacking the metal monster? So fast. Suddenly, Professor Wang, who was wearing giant mosquito powder, let out an exclamation, and Professor Lee, who was opposite him, was also extremely surprised. Professor Wang, you are speechless. Mr. Giant Mosquito, he is really attacking the metal monster, and he moves so fast. How is it? Professor Wang made unscrupulous noises and lost all the temperament of a civilized person. But his roar was also the roar of countless giant mosquitoes. At this moment, almost all the people on Earth in front of the radio let out a cry of surprise in disbelief. That big mosquito actually launched an attack. The 30-meter-long body was soaring rapidly in the sky. Although he had long known that metal monsters could not be his opponent, Jia Yan did not expect that they would be so weak. It's been crushed all the way. Constantly crushing. I only need to use my brainwave power to kill them easily. The red light of these metal monsters is not too dangerous to me at all, so I don't need to avoid it at all. If this continues, not to mention 10 days, but maybe 3 to 5 days, we will be able to roughly eliminate these monsters. But I haven't seen a metal monster building yet, so I can't say for sure yet. There are quite a lot of metal monsters in Fujian province, because in this province, there was an underground passage for metal monsters. Although in 10 years, there have been no more unnecessary metal monsters here, there are still a lot of them today. Jia Yan flew all the way and encountered a place where metal monsters were entrenched, so he landed. When his brainwave power was activated, he easily crushed them and exploded. At this time, even if he was flying at an ordinary speed, he still exceeded the speed of sound by about 25 times. For a mining machine at this speed, not to mention precise shooting, even the tracking system cannot keep up. So what Jia Yan sees now is like a metal monster headless fly. Although he knows he will come, it is extremely difficult for a red light attack to hit him. Boom boom boom. Finally, a red light attack hit Jia Yan's body. A huge explosive shockwave resounded. But Jia Yan was bathed in the light of the explosion. Not only was he not damaged at all, but not even a trace of the blue defense appeared. He lamented in his heart that the metal monster attacks that he had to fight tooth and nail to defend against in the past seemed to be just insignificant mosquito bite attacks to him now. Of course, the so-called mosquito bite is not the bite of a supergiant mosquito like him. Bang 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 bang. When the big mosquito flew up, the team of about 100 metal monsters below completely exploded, and no one escaped. The giant mosquito's body continued to fly faster than the speed of sound. Facing his former formidable enemy, he advanced extremely quickly. Finally, the scenery in Jia Yan's sight looked a little familiar. Here is. A bright light suddenly flashed in his eyes. The huge body gradually decreased. Below is a scene of a large area of ruins, with countless broken walls, many bones, and terrifying tombstones. It's a terrifying apocalyptic scene. In this dead ruin that seems to have no life left, not only is there no trace of a human being, not even the appearance of a metal monster exists. Only 1 or 2 squawking crows occasionally flapped their wings and soared into the sky. Above a half-collapsed house, a huge body reaching 30 meters slowly approached. Half of the house collapsed, and the remaining half was covered with moss. A small tree grew out of the center of the house, showing its dilapidation. Jia Yan looked at the house. Although he saw a dilapidated house, deep longing flashed through his eyes. This is the place where he grew up in his previous life, the Geo family's old house, where his family has spent time together. Now, even this place full of memories has become like this. Apart from some broken boards and metal fragments, there were no other traces of life inside. This made Jia Yan look a little sad. Time will really destroy everything. Even the place you miss so much will no longer be the beautiful place in your memory. The place of memories is gone, so just recreate it. I don't believe that everything in the future will still be as miserable as before. My destiny can't be so miserable forever, I firmly believe it. Saying goodbye secretly in his heart, Jia Yan flapped his wings firmly and soared into the sky. From now on, the Geo family's old house will only exist in memory and will no longer exist in reality. Maybe this is not a good thing, because memories will always be memories, but this can also make people look forward. After all, people live in the present and future, not the past. Beautiful things are lost, then they need to be recreated. Now is the time to work hard and create. Thinking of these, Jia Yan is even more motivated. Boom 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 boom. With explosive speed, the electricity shot towards a large group of metal monsters. But just when Jia Yan was charging towards those metal monsters, bo! A fiery red light seemed to cut through the sky, making the color of the sun pale. It shot towards Jia Yan very quickly. Red light building. At this moment, Jia Yan only felt that the flow of time around his body slowed down. He looked at the corner of the sky not far away. This red light almost filled his entire field of vision. It was heading in his direction at a terrifying speed. It seemed that the fire that could burn the world was almost ready to devour his figure. This is a terrifyingly huge red light with a diameter of 5 meters. The red light is too fast. Although it may not be possible to reach the speed of light due to the need to increase the attack power, and it may not be more powerful than the main guns of those powerful space battleships, their attack power cannot be underestimated. Even Jia Yan had speculated before that the artillery attacks of these red light buildings may be due to the use of a strange mineral like star condensate, so their attack level is only slightly different from the space battleship's artillery fire level, even if compared to the attacks of those gray-yellow star golden desert chariots are much more powerful. But are those things, including the red light attack in front of him, a threat to him now? The big Mosquito, which can even withstand the attack of a 200-meter space battleship, will be destroyed by the red light attack in front of him. What a joke! At this moment, the light in Jia Yan's eyes suddenly condensed. The feeling of time slowing down that he felt was a talent that even powerful living beings could sense. Facing an attack with such terrifying speed, Jia Yan not only felt that the flow of time had slowed down. Immediately, his peak speed exploded. Bang! Wings vibrate. Brainwave power explodes. What erupted in the air was no longer as simple as a sonic boom that broke the speed of sound, but an extremely terrifying crackling sound, as if even the entire space was about to be exploded. Jia Yan burst out with almost the strongest speed. Boom! And the moment he moved, that terrifying 5-meter diameter red light brushed against the edge of his body and shot past fiercely. Very good. I can indeed escape. Jia Yan looked at the red light passing by quickly, and the smile in his eyes flashed away. He knew that his speed had reached a terrifying level, but for Hong Guang, whether that speed could resist it was something Jia Yan himself didn't know. Although being hit may not cause too much damage, Jia Yan doesn't want to do that. After all, relying on Azure defense all the time is not the right thing. He feels that one day, he will face an indefensible being or weapon. Then there will be no an evasion ability is absolutely life or death. So the avoidance drill started at this moment. And it's pretty good, at least he can avoid this kind of red light. Bo! Bo! Boom boom boom. Just after Jia Yan dodged the first blow, a trace of shock suddenly appeared on his cheeks. Because at this moment, he discovered that around his body, Red flashes appeared in several directions that could illuminate the heaven and earth. There were actually as many as 8 huge red lights attacking in his direction. Didn't the people on Earth say that these red light buildings haven't lit up in 10 years? Now they can actually emit so many. I'm really honored. Jia Yan looked at the red light coming from all directions. He knew that some of the 5-meter diameter red light might even be coming from buildings hundreds of kilometers away. 10 years ago, he had never enjoyed such exaggerated treatment. It seems that this time the metal monsters, or the Asta human intelligence brain, paid enough attention to him. But it's too late now. You don't know what I went through during the time I disappeared. Even if it was your Asta people's warships, I destroyed countless of them. An attack on a mere red light building is simply child's play. Jia Yan's body kept moving in the air, and a red light shot out, but it still missed the ground by a hair. A shock wave comparable to the explosion of an atomic bomb rippled throughout the heaven and earth. A mushroom cloud rose into the sky, and the entire land was flattened. The terrifying explosion crater made a large area of mountainous mountains become history. The horror of the red light requires no elaboration. However, a dark figure still did not sway at all in this terrifying shock wave. Just like the towering giant beast that is as motionless as a mountain, even if the world is destroyed, it is impossible to destroy his existence. Jia Yan is still avoiding the red light from behind. The red attacks were quickly dodged by him. 2 more attacks hit the ground, turning this large area into a terrifying hell-like scene. In some places hit by the red light, the ground seemed to melt, and the entire land was almost like magma, emitting smoke and dust. And in the sky, some medium-sized flying shadows appeared at some unknown time. At this time, each of these bodies seemed like small boats churning in the big waves, almost overturned. It's so scary. This is the final battle between the giant Mosquito clan and the metal monster. These red lights come from 4 directions, southwest, northwest, and northeast. You can see how terrible the damage caused by these red lights. Each flying shadow has some bright camera eyes, and each of them aims its perspective downward. After all, the people on Earth are still a technological race. Although the development of science and technology has not made much progress in 10 years, thanks to the big mosquitoes handing over some technological equipment, they have at least gained a lot in today's drone technology. With little development, at this time there are just a few drones, watching the battle below from high altitude. For these pictures, please visit Chiyuan will be reflected through the lens on the screens of some countries and forces. In the terrifying explosion, the huge giant mosquito monster seemed not to be damaged at all at this time, and it flew up directly. The red light no longer comes. Jia Yan looked in several directions silently, smiling slightly in his heart. In fact, he has known since 10 years ago that although the red light attack is terrible, it is the most terrifying attack on the red light building. For them, the huge 5-meter red light attack is also a terrible consumption, so launching a joint attack is obviously their limit. Even if there is still, there will definitely be a time interval. After all, there must be a time interval between the main gun attacks of the space battleship, and these buildings need cooling time. Since you are no longer able to continue, then it's my turn. Jia Yan looked at the 300-meter red light building not far away. At this time, he saw small red light artillery fire in the red light building, continuing to spray firepower towards him. However, these 2-meter red lights were easier for him to avoid. Boom! Jia Yan burst out with speed. There seemed to be a shockwave in the air, and the giant mosquito's huge dark body, like a light and fast fish, approached the building like lightning in the air. Compared with the 300-meter level red light building seen before, the large mosquito at this time reaches a length of 30 meters. If the 6 long legs are spread out, the coverage area can even reach more than 100 meters. So in comparison, this building is no longer so huge and scary. A front foot gently probed. Destroy it? Phew. It's simply unstoppable. The front foot pierced into the red light building.